Chapter 13-19. The middle-aged man cried out in pain as he flew back and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Bang! Xiaochen moved his body gently. The air was like water, and he was like a fish swimming in the water, sticking close to the other party. He sent out 10 moves in a row, forcing the other party to retreat without being able to defend himself. After seeing Xiaochen's true strength, the middle-aged man roared in shock, "There is no need to care about me. Attack that old fogey undergoing his tribulation with all your might." The lunar shadow saber appeared in Xiaochen's right hand. Then, he asked indifferently, "Do you think there is a chance?" Slow. Everything in the Taiji force field seemed to slow down. Xiaochen blocked 10 alone, moving slowly. He did not even need to draw his saber to hold back the other party, suppressing the 10 people. After figuring out the strength of this group of scarlet-clad people, Xiaochen felt more confident. He did not even merge his saber domain into the Taiji force field. He only used the Taiji force field together with the fish dragon art to suppress the other party with the strange changes of speed and slowness. The world spun around. The surrounding scenery seemed like fleeting light and shadows. Lan Chaofeng, who was watching from afar, felt slightly stunned. He could not understand. What martial technique is this? On the surface, it looks like it is just the state of fast and the state of slow. However, why does it feel so harmonious? His movements are also so calm. Originally, Lan Chaofeng was prepared to help. However, after seeing this, he abandoned that thought. Explode! Just as Lan Chaofeng felt that Xiaochen's movements were calm and peaceful, vaguely merging with the world, Lan Chaofeng suddenly sheathed his saber. As his white hair fluttered, the Taiji force field suddenly exploded. Strong winds blew everywhere, and dust filled the air. Wind blew everywhere, and dust filled the sky. This part of the world seemed to have been blown up to the point where there were no rules. 10 odd figures fell out of the dust, all in sorry states, severely injured, and weak. Their spirits were dispirited, and their eyes appeared dispirited. However, their scarlet clothes still looked bright, glistening with a scarlet light. Xiaochen moved 1 kilometer with each step. Then, he slowly walked out of the dust, wind, and rain. His white clothes and white hair made him look as graceful as before, untainted by dust, looking peaceful and peaceful. The middle-aged man received the most attention and was the most heavily injured. He smiled and said, "No wonder Master told us not to get lucky before we came. Blue Dragon King Xiaochen, you are indeed outstanding. Speak. Who sent you here? How can you have such strange powers? Tell me honestly and I'll spare your life." Xiaochen gently lowered the scabbard of the lunar shadow saber and pressed it against the middle-aged man's forehead. This group of people had mysterious origins and strange strength. If he had not comprehended the Taiji Dao, it would have been very troublesome to deal with them. More importantly, Xiaochen wanted to figure out why this group of people, who clearly had not undergone a tribulation, did not have a heart of an emperor, or primordial energy, could have the offensive prowess of Emperor Wu. The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood and laughed crazily. "Xiaochen, what are you so proud of? Do you think you've won? You actually used death to threaten me, ha ha ha, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard. We are a group of dead people in the first place. No matter the result of this battle, you will always be the one to suffer. No matter how strong you are, you will not be able to change the result. This old fogey will definitely die today." The 10 people's bodies swelled up continuously. The scarlet light of their clothes slowly seeped in, quickly dimming the color of their clothes. Xiaochen's expression changed drastically. Without exception, these 10 people were all death-sworn warriors. They were going to self-detonate. As long as one of them succeeded in self-detonating, they could destroy this island and affect Elder Qin, who was on the Emperor's road, causing him to fail his tribulation. In the distance, Lan Chaofeng was startled as well. Such a turn of events was completely unexpected. Even if Lan Chaofeng made a move now, he would not be able to stop everyone from self-detonating. If he miscalculated, he would lose everything. Xiaochen glanced at Elder Qin, who was on the Emperor's road, out of the corner of his eye. Elder Qin had only managed to take 200-odd steps. The bone-chilling wind had already torn his clothes to shreds. The strong wind was merciless. The armor under his clothes was also damaged. His body was covered in wounds, a sorry sight to behold. The most shocking thing were the 2 scars on Xiaochen's face, which looked like he had been whipped. However, even so, Xiaochen had not given up. Even so, Elder Qin did not give up. He walked forward step by step with a hopeful gaze. Elder Qin, who was immersed in his great tribulation of wind and fire, could not afford to be distracted at all. He did not notice that there were still 10 strange cultivators preparing to self-detonate. Hope, Xiaochen felt a pang in his heart. Elder Qin had followed him all the way to this vast heavenly starry ocean. From the Dragon's Gate's initial establishment, he had gone through many trials and tribulations, all the way until the Dragon's Gate's official establishment. Elder Qin had made great contributions and never asked for anything. However, in this great tribulation of wind and fire, could it be that I cannot even give him a trace of hope? Major magic skill, Dermic World. As long as Xiaochen executed the Dermic World magic skill, he could instantly trample this group of bastards to death. However, for a long time, Xiaochen needed at least 3 seconds to prepare to execute Dermic World. However, in the current situation, the 10 madmen would self-detonate in the next second. Xiaochen would not have 3 seconds to prepare. No. Absolutely not. No matter what, I, Xiaochen, will leave this trace of hope for you. Rage? Madness? In that case, I will give you the strength to trample on all the injustices in this world. In Xiaochen's sea of consciousness, the Dermic World hidden in the deepest depths felt Xiaochen's baleful aura and suddenly opened its eyes. Instantly, Xiaochen's mind became incredibly clear. There were no obstructions in executing Dermic World, making it incredibly smooth. As Xiaochen's white hair fluttered, his eyes looked exceptionally scary. Just as the 10 blood-clad guards' bodies swelled to their limits and were about to self-detonate, Xiaochen's body suddenly swelled up, reaching 3 kilometers tall. At the same time, Xiaochen's strong aura also increased. His aura was like a surging wave. Lan Chaofeng, who was rushing over, got careless and got pushed back by this wave. When Xiaochen's body reached 3 kilometers tall, Xiaochen felt an unprecedented strength. He glared at the group of madmen below and ruthlessly stomped down. Amid rumbling sounds, Xiaochen used absolute strength to crush the 10 blood-clad guards into a pool of blood as he stomped on them. Whoosh! 3 seconds later, intense pain racked Xiaochen's entire body, and he shrank back to his original size. Boundless blood seeped out of his skin as he fell from the sky. No major magic skill could be executed in one go. This was especially so for a heaven-defying major magic skill like Dermic World. Not a single step could be skipped. Xiaochen forcefully shortened the 3-second execution time to 1 second. The repercussions that followed were unavoidable. Just as Xiaochen was about to fall to the ground, a gentle wind slowly arrived and supported him. It was Lan Chaofeng. Lan Chaofeng reacted very quickly. The instant Xiaochen turned back, he threw a palm strike. Xiaochen landed firmly on the ground. Without saying a word, he quickly swallowed a sage medicinal pill to suppress the injuries in his body. Brat, are you alright? Don't move. Let me take a look. Lan Chaofeng rushed over and said, "Why did you put in so much effort? You made it look like you underwent a tribulation. What else do you want me to say to you? Don't end up dying while Elder Qin is still alive." Although Lan Chaofeng said that Xiaochen was very powerful, he kept checking on Xiaochen's injuries with a tense expression. This warmed Xiaochen's heart. He smiled bitterly. This senior Lan is always like this. After a while, Lan Chaofeng heaved a sigh of relief. Brat, consider yourself lucky. It is just the rebound of a martial technique. Fortunately, it is not too strong. Actually, Xiaochen also knew that the backlash was somewhat strong. However, it was not to the point where it would be fatal. However, seeing Lan Qiaofeng's anxious appearance, Xiao Qin could only let Lan Qiaofeng personally check on Xiao Qin before he could relax. "Thank you, Senior Lan." Lan Qiaofeng snorted coldly with a serious expression. "Even if your life is not in danger, you should not put in so much effort. You might end up attracting your great tribulation of wind and fire ahead of time. At that time, even God would not be able to save you." The great tribulation of wind and fire came ahead of time, catching people off guard. Xiao Qin understood this principle and did not dare to rebut. Xiao Qin looked around and pointed to the front. "Look, Elder Qin is about to undergo the final tribulation of wind." Lan Qiaofeng quickly turned his head and saw 3 tornadoes surging over. The strong winds made Elder Qin's body sway slightly. The power of these winds was startlingly strong. Each tornado was 1 kilometer tall. As they charged over, they kicked up dark clouds in the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, rumbling endlessly. Gritting his teeth, Elder Qin forcefully charged over. His body instantly disappeared into the 3 tornadoes. The hearts of Xiao Qin and Lan Qiaofeng tightened at the same time as they stared at the tornadoes. This was especially so for Lan Qiaofeng. He had undergone the great tribulation of wind and fire before and knew how powerful the final wind tribulation was. Many people had died at this stage. After 1 breath, Elder Qin did not appear. 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 4 breaths, and there was still no sign of Elder Qin. The two's expressions turned somewhat unsightly. Even though Xiao Qin had not undergone the great tribulation of wind and fire, he knew that the situation was not good. A ferocious roar rang out. Elder Qin's figure pierced through the storm and landed somewhat unsteadily. Fire! The moment Elder Qin landed, an overwhelming fire spread out on the platform, burning Elder Qin's body. Lan Qiaofeng relaxed for now. He smiled and said, "Old Qin is at least 60% confident of clearing this great tribulation of wind and fire." Xiao Qin asked, "What do you mean?" Lan Qiaofeng said, "Old Qin has 2 trump cards. I originally thought that he would use one of them for the final wind tribulation. Who knew, it would be useless. He forcefully endured it. This will bring him great benefits later on." The raging fire burned ceaselessly. Every step was filled with flames of different attributes. However, this path of fire did not have any tricks. The person undergoing the tribulation had to walk it all the way. It would be fine if one could walk it. However, if one could not, one would be burned to death on it, not even leaving a corpse behind. Even one's soul would scatter. Lan Qiaofeng sighed and said, "The pain that this fire tribulation brings is even more direct than the wind tribulation, 10 times more painful. It mostly tests the willpower of the person undergoing the tribulation." Several people collapsed on their emperor's road not because they could not endure this fire tribulation but because of the pain. When Xiao Qin heard this, he felt astonished. The emperor's road was difficult. While it was a trial that heaven gave to cultivators, it was also an opportunity. After clearing this emperor's road, one's lifespan would increase to 2,000 years. What gift could be better than this? However, Old Qin is still fine. His flames are only rank 3. The fire tribulation that I underwent back then was simply fatal. Not only were the flames rank 7, but there were also fire demons in them. With every step I took, I would suffer the attacks of fire demons. Chapter 13:20. Thinking of the past, Lan Qiaofeng sighed. Xiao Qin asked out of curiosity, "Senior, what was the color of this emperor's road back then?" Lan Qiaofeng smiled and said, "Even if I tell you, you definitely won't believe me." "What color?" "The Golden Emperor's road has 3,000 steps. With every step, it was like carrying a mountain. Even gravity changed." Xiao Qin did not dare believe it. Emperor Forsaken, who also had a Golden Emperor's road, had reached prime. How come Lan Qiaofeng was not even a sovereign martial emperor? This was incredible. Lan Qiaofeng smiled bitterly and said, "I know you do not believe me. I brought this on myself. I killed too many people and am covered in sin. The 9 heavens lightning tribulation is so strong that it makes one despair. Let me give you a reminder. The heavenly Tao is fair. Don't commit too many sins. There will be a time for revenge. This startled Xiao Chen. He asked, what is sin? Sin was something that could be seen during the immortal epoch. Now, it is somewhat vague. However, it definitely exists. Killing ordinary people, slaughtering the weak, cultivating evil cultivation techniques, all of these will result in sin. Lan Chaofeng smiled and said, you don't have to worry too much about this. Normally, only those evil cultivators and assassins like me would be covered in sin. Killing those heinous criminals and those who attacked you will not result in any sin. As they spoke, Elder Qin cleared the fire tribulation. The emperor's door was only 300 steps away from him. He could clearly see every tiny pattern on the door. However, the latter 300 steps would be even more horrifying. That was the true test. Lan Chaofeng thought to himself, Old Qin, Xiao Chen already helped you obtain this hope. Whether you can clear it or not will depend on your luck. In the tallest pavilion of the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, Ao Lang looked into the distance, focusing on the island where Elder Qin underwent his tribulation. This place was tens of thousands of kilometers away from that island. Even though he was a sovereign martial emperor, he could not see that far. However, once the blood-clad guards succeeded, the explosion would affect the road of emperor. Even from tens of thousands of kilometers away, Xiao Chen would be able to clearly see the mysterious phenomena triggered by the failure of the tribulation. He had been looking forward to it for a long time, but the expected explosion did not appear, which made him a little annoyed. Why isn't it exploding yet? After a while, he seemed to be a little restless, wondering if something unexpected had happened. However, after thinking about it, Lan Chaofeng felt that it was impossible. 10 Emperor Wu self-detonated. Even if Lan Chaofeng was present, he would not be able to stop all of them. Furthermore, as long as one person succeeded in self-detonating, it would affect Elder Qin's tribulation. If a few more succeeded, even Lan Chaofeng and Xiao Chen would be injured. If one was lucky, they might even draw out Xiao Chen's great tribulation of wind and fire in advance. Dong dong dong. The sound of footsteps came from below. A man hurriedly walked out of the stairs and knelt down. Dragon King, all 10 life tablets on the blood-clothed island are broken. What? Ao Lang roared angrily, glaring angrily. This frightened the kneeling person into trembling, not daring to raise his head. The blood-clad guards were Ao Lang's trump card. He treated every one of them as a treasure. Death-sworn warriors were something that had to be nurtured from a young age. Without several decades, one death meant one less. Now, Ao Lang was told that all 10 life tablets were broken. That was to say, the 10 people who went to disrupt Elder Qin's tribulation were all dead. However, this was not the crucial point. These 10 people were just sending themselves to death in the first place. The crucial point was that Ao Lang did not see any mysterious phenomena at all. That was to say, Elder Qin was still undergoing his tribulation. Ao Lang's losses were all for nothing. Ao Lang's heart bled. This was simply unacceptable. The blood-clad guards were so strong and did not fear death, much stronger than a regular Emperor Wu. Looking around, which Emperor Wu would dare to casually self-detonate? Damn it! What's going on? Ao Lang's eyes flickered. After he calmed down, he continuously analyzed the situation. However, he could not figure out what was going on. Why did the foolproof plan fail? Reporting. Your Highness the Dragon King, the Divine Daughter Tian Yushi and the 2 Holy Scions are here to seek an audience. Another person came with a message. Ao Lang waved his hand impatiently and said, I will not meet them. I already said long ago that the deity race absolutely will not be allowed to build a temple on the islands that the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace controls. After the Thunder King disappeared, the deity race's faction expanded rapidly. Traces of the deity race could be seen everywhere in the Kunlun realm. There were also many factions in the heavenly starry ocean that felt pressured or wanted to gain benefits. The Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace allowed the deity race to build temples and statues of deities in their own factions to receive the power of faith. However, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace had deep accumulations. Furthermore, the Divine Dragon Palaces of the four seas could take care of each other. They did not fear the deity race's pressure in the heavenly starry ocean. Furthermore, Ao Lang had the blood-clad guards. Hence, he was even more confident, never agreeing to the deity race's requests. Wait a moment. Suddenly, Ao Lang thought of something. Are you saying that the holy scions you mentioned are the two from the Bushan Palace? That's right. The white tiger Holy Scion Xiahou Ju and the black tortoise Holy Scion Feng Wuji are both there. However, the divine son Diwuk is not there. Only the divine daughter Tian Yushi is there. Ao Lang revealed a strange smile on his face. Interesting. The three holy masters have not been able to deal with Yingzongtian. It looks like they are getting anxious, actually working together with the deity race's people. Isn't this just inviting a wolf into the house? I'll go take a look and see what these juniors are up to. Everyone knew that before the Thunder King disappeared, he had handed the Bushan Palace's inheritance medallion to the Haotian sect master, Yingzongtian. The three holy masters could not accept this. Hence, the secret struggle between the two sides turned into an open struggle. However, although the three holy masters held the upper hand, they could not take down the Haotian sect, resulting in a stalemate. Inside the hall, the divine daughter Tian Yushi and the sons of the three holy masters sipped tea as they waited leisurely. Xiahou Ju asked, "Will this Ao Lang agree to us?" Although the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace has declined in the past few years, it is still an old faction with deep accumulations. Feng Wuji also felt suspicious. He said, "Furthermore, I heard that he has been rejecting your deity race in the past." The divine daughter Tian Yushi had white hair and an extraordinary air. She smiled faintly and said, "That was then, and this is now. Furthermore, there are the two of you here. Given his astute character, he will definitely be able to understand the deeper meaning of this." Ha ha ha. The divine daughter has arrived from afar. This Ao did not go out to welcome you. Forgive me, forgive me. Ao Lang walked over amid loud laughter and sat down in the middle. The loss of 10 blood-clad guards did not show any suspicion on his face. "Greetings, Western Sea Dragon King." Xiahou Ju and Feng Wuji said with cupped fist salutes. No matter what, Ao Lang was the senior of these people. Ao Lang smiled and said, "I have also heard of the two holy scions' names. After you returned from the astral battlefield, I heard that even some of the Emperor Wu's were no match for you too." Ao Lang's eyes were very sharp. With one glance, he could tell the difference between Xiahou Ju and Feng Wuji and the holy scions of the heavenly starry ocean. Their auras were denser and heavier. Most importantly, they had a sharpness and a ruthlessness to them. With one glance, it was clear that they had experienced killing for a long time. Compared to the holy scions of the heavenly starry ocean, they were much stronger. Compared to his most valued son, Ao Feng, there was no need to compare. The more Ao Lang compared, the sadder he felt. Why did Ao Lang give birth to a trash son? Not only was he useless, he even caused trouble for himself. You are too polite. Hearing Ao Lang's flattery, Xiahou Ju and Feng Wuji both appeared very calm. The many years of experiential training in the astral battlefield had already worn away the ostentatiousness of the two. Tian Yushi put down his teacup and said indifferently, "Time is tight. I cannot speak much with Senior Ao, so I'll get straight to the point. I have no other purpose in coming here this time. I just want the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace to join the deity Dao Union. Senior Ao probably knows that the Great Chaos now is just the surface. The true Great Calamity is far from here. When the Great Calamity arrives, aside from working together to fight the enemy, there is no other way." Ao Lang felt somewhat confused. He understood what Tian Yushi said. The great chaos now was indeed just the surface. However, what kind of organization was the deity Tao Union? He had never heard of it before. Tian Yushi explained, the deity Tao Union has just been established. It is normal for Senior AO not to understand. I'll give a simple explanation. The deity Tao Union has Emperor Forsaken as its alliance chief. The heaven-punishing corpse god, the Dongyue ghost emperor, and the three holy masters are the vice-alliance chiefs. It unifies more than 70% of the 9 ranks of the great families in the Kunlun continent. When Ao Lang heard this, he sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder this Tian Yushi did not show any intention of bowing when he saw him. Even the 2 holy lords were just being polite. Compared to this colossal deity Tao Union, his Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace was pitifully small, unable to withstand a single blow. Fortunately, he still had the treasure master and the blood-clad guards behind him. In the end, he still had some trump cards. By the way, the most mysterious treasure master of the heavenly starry ocean has already agreed to join the deity Tao Union. Emperor Forsaken personally negotiated this. However, the treasure master did not ask for any position. Boom! It was like a bolt of lightning struck Ao Lang's mind. The hand that he held the teacup trembled slightly, and the teacup fell to the table. This final piece of news was too shocking to Ao Lang. Even the treasure master, whom he considered the most mysterious and unfathomable, actually joined the deity Tao Union. Tian Yushi smiled and asked, Senior Ao, what's wrong? Ao Lang reacted and said, it's fine, it's fine. Can I think about it for a while? Tian Yushi rejected, no way. We do not have time to waste here. It is fine if Senior Ao is not willing. The deity Tao Union never forces anyone. Goodbye. Xiahou Ju and Feng Wuji stood up at the same time, not saying anything more. Such a situation made Ao Lang somewhat anxious. Originally, he was prepared to ask Tian Yushi for a price and then bargain with him. Who could have imagined that Tian Yushi would leave directly? Divine Daughter, there is no need to leave in such a rush. Our Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace is rather scenic. Stay here for a few more days. I will discuss this with my brothers and will have an answer soon. The Divine Dragon Palaces of the 4 seas have always been a community. I simply cannot make a decision alone. Ao Lang's figure flashed, and he arrived before the group with a pleading smile. Tian Yushi smiled and said, Heavenly Star Island's scenery is pretty good. However, we really have important matters to attend to. Dragon King, take your time to think about it. However, after you think about it, the situation in the Western Sea might change. Ao Lang's heart sank. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked in understanding, are the few of you here because of the Dragon's Gate's Elder's tribulation? Tian Yushi smiled faintly and said, that's right. This is a small gift that Emperor Forsaken gave to the 3 holy masters after they agreed to join the deity Tao Union. The Dragon's Gate's Blue Dragon King has been arrogant for too long. It is time to suppress him. Not everyone can successfully clear their tribulation. Chapter 1321. When Ao Lang heard that, his face sank. Then, he made up his mind. I agree to join the deity Tao Union. If the deity race wants to build a temple here and spread the faith of the deity race, I will not stop them. On the nameless island, Lan Chaofeng watched anxiously as Elder Qin underwent his tribulation. At the same time, he did not relax, keeping his guard up at all times. At this crucial moment, if someone came to cause trouble, everything would be for naught. Xiaochen walked over and checked the corpses of the 10 blood-clad guards. More accurately, they were just a pile of mush. The blood-clad guards were prepared to self-detonate. Their bodies were already rotting from the inside out. Furthermore, Xiaochen kicked them from the outside. Under the pincer attack, they turned into mush, covered in blood. Xiaochen felt very curious about these blood-clad guards. However, there was no way to check the corpses. Only some tattered clothes remained. These clothes were dripping with blood and filled with a sinister aura. Shao Chen flicked out a strand of energy and tore the tattered clothes into the air. When he looked carefully, he heard a faint resentment. As the cloth floated, it looked like a snake wriggling gently. Shao Chen flicked his finger, and a strand of solar true flame came from his fingertip, burning the cloth. Ah! Thousands of miserable shrieks came from the cloth. Black smoke spread out. That was dense death qi, the most common in the demonic world. Shao Chen showed a slightly startled expression. It looked like these blood-clad guards had some connection to the demonic world. Shao Chen could see several humanoid figures twisting and struggling in the black death qi. They were indistinct. As the solar true flame burned them, they slowly dissipated. Whoosh! Suddenly, the death qi struggled free of the restraints of the flame and ferociously charged at Shao Chen. You are seeking death. He raised his hand and struck out with his palm. The death qi was immediately scattered in all directions. Shao Chen withdrew his hand and frowned. It is really resilient. It looks like these blood-clad guards are quite skilled. After saying that, he flicked out 6 strands of saber qi. Only then did the scattered death qi disappear. As Shao Chen watched the death qi disappear, he entered deep thought. Although death qi was somewhat strange, there were people in the Kunlun continent who used it as well. The ghost race and the corpse race both cultivated death qi. However, most of their death qi came from dead people. They would not kill the innocent. Of course, some evil cultivators were excluded. The scarlet robes before Shao Chen had definitely killed many innocent people for no reason, resulting in an extremely strong resentment. As a result, the solar true flame could not completely extinguish them. Sinful. Shao Chen shook his head, and a look of disgust flashed in his eyes. He wondered how many innocent lives had been sacrificed to forge this blood-red robe. In truth, he did not know that the method to create blood robes was far crueler than he imagined. A normal grudge would not have such great tenacity. They had to use children, infants, pregnant women, and other carriers. Not only did they have to kill them, but they had to be tortured to death. Whoosh! Shao Chen returned to Lan Chaofeng's side. On the Emperor's Road, a halo of flowing water appeared around Elder Qin as he climbed the final step with much difficulty. That was Elder Qin's final trump card, a Peak King grade secret treasure that he had specially prepared for his tribulation. He even asked Mo Qin to strengthen it. Lan Chaofeng asked casually, "Did you notice anything?" Shao Chen replied sullenly, "Not much. I only feel that it has something to do with the methods of the demonic world. However, many of the demonic world's secret techniques are circulated in the Kunlun realm as well, so it's hard to say." Lan Chaofeng sighed softly, "That is not strange. Right now, many of the unremarkable factions of the heavenly starry ocean suddenly soared. They all possess some demonic treasures similar to this scarlet robe. How can the deep abyss demonic world's shadow be missing in this chaotic world?" Whoosh! Beams of resplendent light suddenly shone from behind them. The golden light seemed to be solid, dyeing the world in a golden color. Many afterimages of golden light appeared before Shao Chen and Lan Chaofeng. The two turned around and saw that the source of the light was a golden warship bathed in divine light. Sagely songs resounded around the warship, praising the deity sovereign continuously. The people of the deity race. They came all the way here. It looks like they do not come with good intentions. Lan Chaofeng narrowed his eyes, and a heavy murderous intent flashed in them. Whoosh! Sonic booms resounded, and a group of figures descended. The divine daughter Tian Yushi, the 12 keepers guarding the divine son and divine daughter, the white tiger holy son Shao Hoju, and the black tortoise holy son Feng Wuji. Aside from these people, there was another person in the sky. This person appeared to be a middle-aged man with white hair and wearing golden robes. The light on this person's body flickered, and golden halos flickered behind him. There was a total of 7 halos. This was a 7th heaven deity race sovereign martial emperor. With such a large lineup, Shao Chen and Lan Chaofeng did not dare to be careless. The two flew forward and blocked the other party from getting any closer. Xiaochen swept his gaze across the people in front and discovered that this group of people's auras were exceptionally calm. Amid the seriousness, there was also a sharp and somber air. The experiential training in the astral battlefield must have allowed these survivors to mature. Xiaochen. Xiao Hoju said through gritted teeth when he saw the white-haired Xiaochen. He could no longer suppress the hatred in his eyes. A divine halberd flew over and blocked the berserk Xiao Hoju. Then, Tian Yushi said calmly, "Calm down. Don't forget what the deity sovereign said. Right now, his luck is flourishing. The entire heavenly Tao is taking care of him. This is not the time to kill him." Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Brother Xiao's sharpness has not diminished. You are still as impulsive as before. However, the three holy masters always move as one. Why do I not see the holy daughter Nuanmuyun?" Xiaochen had a good impression of this holy daughter. Back then, when he first came to the Kunlun realm, he had received some benefits from her. Furthermore, given Xiaochen's judgment, this Nuanmuyun would not be as difficult to deal with as the other holy scions. If she were here, perhaps he could negotiate with her. She is dead. Xiao Hoju looked at Xiaochen and said coldly, "She died in the astral battlefield. She died because of you. This debt is on you." Xiaochen was indeed somewhat surprised. It was said that more than half of the outstanding talents who went to the astral battlefield died. However, he had not expected a holy daughter to fall. Furthermore, it was a holy daughter that he had interacted with before. Xiaochen was a little disappointed and emotional. However, no matter what, it was not his turn to bear this debt. Xiaochen replied indifferently, "Xiaoju, I have never feared an enemy in my life. If you want to kill me, please find another reason. If you want to take revenge, please look for the devil dweller who killed her." Xiao Hoju said somewhat angrily, "You bastard. How can this have nothing to do with you? If not for you putting too much pressure on us during the king conferral ceremony, I would not have done so. Do I need to go to the Star Wars battlefield? If Muyun wasn't worried about us, why would she accompany us? Tell me, does this have anything to do with you?" Xiaochen was startled when he heard this and didn't know how to refute it. "Don't worry, I've already killed that demon myself. The next one will be you, the main culprit." Xiao Hoju looked coldly at Xiaochen. Then, he glanced at Elder Qin, who was walking on his emperor's road with much difficulty. He smiled coldly and said, "It is really difficult for him to walk. You want him to advance to martial emperor, right? Let me tell you this, it is impossible. Today, I will make you watch him burn to death on his emperor's road. I will plant a heart demon in you. I will break the luck of your dragon's gate." Xiaochen raged in his heart. He shouted coldly, "How dare you? Even if it is as you said, that I am responsible for Nuanmuyun's death, you can just come at me, Xiaochen. Don't even think of harming the innocent. Don't touch my bottom line." Tian Yushi said indifferently, "I'm afraid that we will really touch it this time." "Attack!" Xiaochen said casually. Then, that seventh heaven sovereign martial emperor's figure flashed as he charged at Lan Chaofeng. The 12 keepers spread out in a straight line, wanting to surround Xiaochen and hold him back. Tian Yushi led Xiao Hoju and Feng Wuji into the sky, flying towards the emperor's road. Everything happened in an instant. Emperor Forsaken had calculated the strength of the dragon's gate. For the sake of suppressing Xiaochen's side, he did not even hesitate to send a sovereign martial emperor. However, just at this moment, something strange happened. An intense explosion rang out in the sky. Tian Yushi and the others turned their heads to look and saw their warship shattering into golden dust. Then, it turned into an extremely gorgeous light scattering in all directions. Sonic booms rang out as an arrow flew over. It carried a might that could destroy the world. It left a long black mark in space, destroying all life force. Everything above that black mark was blasted into nothingness by the power of the arrow. Retreat! Horror flashed in the eyes of the deity race sovereign martial emperor, locked on by the arrow as he quickly retreated. The expressions of Tian Yushi and the others changed drastically. They frantically retreated, their footsteps hurried and flustered. Although Tian Yushi and the others did their best to scatter, the shock waves still struck them. The perfect formation immediately fell apart. The shock waves from the explosion of the arrow knocked them all into the air. When the deity race sovereign martial emperors landed, they stumbled back another 100 meters. Blood leaked out of a corner of their lips, and their complexions paled. Just the shock waves alone reduced this group of outstanding talents, who had just returned from experiential training in the astral battlefield, to such a miserable state. If they had been struck head-on, the result would have been easy to imagine. Whoosh! 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 Tearing sounds rang out incessantly as hundreds and thousands of arrows flew over from the sky. Although the might of this arrow was much weaker than the earlier one, it was faster and covered a wider area. One person and one bow forced this group of outstanding talents into a sorry state, forcing them to retreat. The deity race 7th Heaven Emperor Wu frowned and fixed his gaze on the person holding the bow. Then, his figure flashed, wanting to charge over. Emperor Wu was very clear that this person was an outstanding archer. Given sufficient distance, she could suppress the group of people below. Right now, the more problematic thing was that she already held the initiative, grasping the rhythm. Only by getting close and disrupting her rhythm could Emperor Wu regain the initiative. Your opponent is me. Lan Chaofeng moved like a shadow, suddenly appearing on the left of this deity race sovereign martial emperor. He smiled faintly and stabbed the dagger in his hand. The dagger was fast, accurate, and ruthless. It pierced through in an instant, startling that deity race sovereign martial emperor, who broke out in a cold sweat. The two fought an intense battle in the air, preventing the deity race sovereign martial emperor from delaying the archer. Chapter 1322. Xiaoqian turned his head back and saw an exquisite figure leaping on an azure profound bird tens of kilometers away. That figure danced in the air as arrows flew out from his hands in a fluid and smooth manner. Ahead, Tian Yushi and the others were forced to retreat step by step. Soon, they retreated to the surface of the sea. Xiaoqian smiled faintly and said, Emperor Yi shooting sun bao, first senior sister is here. Seeing Xiaoqian's smile, Shui Lingling, who was on the profound bird, nodded gently. Seeing Xiaoqian approach step by step, Tian Yushi and the others could not do anything. The white tiger Holy Sun, Xiao Hoju, gritted his teeth in anger. Shui Lingling, don't give me a chance to get close. Xiao Hoju replied with an even faster, more ruthless arrow. Xiao Hoju stretched out a finger and shattered it. After that, he quickly retreated. Rumble. Waves roared on the surface of the sea, and pillars of water shot up into the sky. The group was forced further and further away. By the time Shui Lingling landed beside Xiaoqian, they had already retreated several hundred kilometers. First senior sister, why are you here? Xiaoqian asked joyfully. If not for Shui Lingling, Xiaoqian would not know what to do. That guardian of the deity race knew the combined attack technique. Furthermore, she had been training in the starry heavens, nurturing her sharpness. If they really fought, Xiaoqian would not be afraid. However, he would be unable to avoid being delayed for some time. In this period of time, Tian Yushi, Xia Hojue, and Xiaoqian would be able to do many things, such as spoiling Elder Qin's tribulation. The moment first senior sister arrived, the situation instantly reversed. Xiaoqian now held the initiative. Shui Lingling revealed a gentle smile. Master called me over. He knew that Emperor Forsaken and the three holy masters would definitely make a move when Elder Qin underwent his tribulation. So, he got me to rush over with the Emperor Yi shooting sun bao. Xiaoqian asked doubtfully, doesn't this bao not have an artifact spirit? Shui Lingling played with the bao in her hand with a smile and said happily, hee, Master has finished forging it for me. Now it has 70 to 80% of the power of a transcendent divine weapon. However, I can only shoot 3 arrows out of the profound skill that comes with the divine bao, the the shooting sun arrow. Xiaochen smiled and said, "That's enough. The enemy's momentum is in chaos, and the initiative is in our hands." As the huge waves surged, Tian Yoshi led the 12 keepers, Xia Hojue, and Feng Wuji out of the waves and landed on the small island once more. However, this time, his imposing manner was completely gone. He did not have the initiative and calmness from before, and his figure was slightly disheveled. Tian Yushi, Xia Hojue, and Feng Wuji were still fine, uninjured. However, the 12 watchers were in a miserable state, riddled with arrow wounds and covered in blood. When Shui Lingling saw Xia Hojue, she showed a stern expression and scolded, "Xia Hojue, is there anyone as shameless as you? Back then, during the king conferral ceremony, you forced my junior brother, Xiao Chen, several times. Now, you are blaming Xiao Chen for it. Also, Nuan Muyun clearly died to save you. You are useless, so why are you blaming my junior brother?" Xia Hojue said coldly, "There is no need for you to care about my matters. You won't be able to remain smug for long. The Haotian sect will suffer a calamity soon. Just wait and see." Shui Lingling glared at Xiao Chen and said, "You really think too highly of yourself. To think that you are so smug after becoming the deity race's lackey. Xia Hojue, Feng Wuji, have you forgotten the days when we fought together in the profound domain against Diwuk?" Feng Wuji and Xia Hojue were stunned at the same time. They had not expected Shui Lingling to bring up the past. Once upon a time, Shui Lingling, and Juanxi, and the others were known as the 7 giants of the Tianwu domain's younger generation. Feng Wuji and Juanxi were the sons of the 3 holy masters above the 7 giants. At that time, they were aloof and aloof. When Feng Wuji and Xia Hojue recalled the past, they were rendered speechless. Even Xia Hojue was somewhat stunned. When Tian Yushi saw the situation, he thought to himself, "Oh no. This woman is too incredible." Even Xia Hojue is somewhat shaken by her words. Shui Lingling, that was then, and this is now. Now, the deity Dao union is already established. Furthermore, the divine son Diwuk comprehended the deity race's ancient canon. Soon, he will rise to the heavens in one step. Only the deity Dao union is the trend. Tian Yushi said calmly, "Even if you rely on the power of the divine Bao to force us back today, it will not change anything." Shui Lingling glanced at Tian Yushi and smiled faintly. "Don't try to reason with me. I know that Diwuk is a man, hiding and not daring to show himself. Letting a woman like you take the lead is the sign of a coward. Even if he rises to the heavens in one step, this will be a stain on his reputation. Furthermore, you are only a so-so. You said that I relied on the power of the divine weapon. If you are capable, get your man to give you one. However, he cannot give it to me. You can only be jealous and watch as I destroy your worship. You can't do anything about it." Xiao Chen's final sentence was filled with mockery. However, every word she said was the truth. Tian Yushi's breathing turned ragged. He felt incredibly frustrated. His chest heaved up and down, and he lost control of his emotions. You, Shui Lingling did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. She snorted coldly and said, "You? What you? Am I wrong? If you are capable, then call Diwuk out now. If you are capable, get Diwuk to give you a weapon on the divine weapon ranking. If not, then scram. Relying on numbers to bully us, an elder undergoing his tribulation. What kind of capability is that?" Xiao Hojue and Feng Wuji blushed slightly at Xiao Chen's words, feeling incredibly embarrassed. However, the 12 injured keepers could not stand their divine daughter being bullied like that. They stepped forward and soared into the air. "Don't be rude to the divine daughter." Xiao Chen smiled faintly. "With me around, don't be rude to my senior sister." Stepping forward, Xiao Chen drew his saber from its scabbard. This was the first time he drew his saber on the island. The instant he drew his saber, he spread out his saber domain. In his sea of consciousness, 3 spots of dazzling saber energy as bright as the sun were instantly detonated by Xiao Chen. Whoosh! Immediately, the light on Xiao Chen's body became extremely intense, causing the surrounding 1 kilometer to lose color. When the light appeared once more, the already injured 12 watchers were sent flying, vomiting blood as they retreated one by one. Saber energy was one of Xiao Chen's 3 great trump cards. For the sake of instantly knocking back the 12 keepers and intimidating them, Xiao Chen had no choice but to use it in advance. The expressions of Tian Yuxi and the others changed. Suddenly, they felt that being so close to Xiao Chen was somewhat dangerous, so they all moved back. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber. Then, he looked at Tian Yuxi and said, "Senior Lan possesses a strength that even sovereign martial emperors fear. He will not fall so quickly. Tian Yuxi, you no longer have a chance. Go back." Shifting his gaze, Xiao Chen looked at Xiaoju and said softly, "Xiaoju, you were once aloof, known as an outstanding talent. Even if you stand on the deity race's side now, I ask you not to dirty the word outstanding talent and forget the glory of the past. Even if you think that Nguyen Muyun's death is related to me, I will accept it. If you have any problems, just come at me. Don't attack the people around me." As Xiaoju looked at the carefree Xiao Chen, who exuded the air of a king, he felt defeated for some reason. He said sullenly, "Let's go. Divine Daughter, there is no need to use your trump card. The 3 holy masters thank you for your help this time." Feng Wuji and Xiaoju turned and left together. Before they left, they gave Xiao Chen a deep look. Tian Yuxi stared at Shui Lingling and said, "In the future, when the deity Dao Union sends its troops to the Haotian sect, let's see if you will behave like you did today." Today's matter would be unforgettable for Xiao Chen. She was the bona fide divine daughter. When had she ever been scolded by another woman? After the group of people went far away, Xiao Chen looked at Shui Lingling and smiled. "First senior sister, I discovered that you are somewhat different today. What do you mean by, if you are jealous, get your man to give you a transcendent divine weapon?" Shui Lingling's earlier aura vanished. She smiled embarrassedly and said, "Sorry about that. I was careless and took advantage of you." Xiao Chen felt embarrassed in his heart. Indeed, first senior sister is first senior sister. He still remembered how she chased a certain someone for several days and nights in the savage battlefield. After that, he completely lost his temper. The intense fluctuations in the sky stopped, and the deity race Emperor Wu left. Lan Chaofeng put away his dagger and landed beside Xiao Chen. On the Emperor's road, before the halo of flowing water around Elder Qin shattered, he finally cleared the last step of the 1,000 steps. He cleared it. Shui Lingling exclaimed with joy. When Xiao Chen saw this, he heaved a sigh of relief. It was as Lan Chaofeng said. As long as he endured the external pressure, Elder Qin had a high chance of clearing his great tribulation of wind and fire. After all, Xiao Chen's great tribulation of wind and fire was just the most ordinary one. Elder Qin's accumulations were not bad either. Even so, by the time he reached the Emperor's door, Elder Qin was already so weak that he only had half a breath left. His aura wavered, looking like he would collapse at any moment. 1,000 steps. Each step was a hurdle, and each step was a tribulation. Along the way, Xiao Chen's heart ached at several of the scenes he saw, feeling moved. However, now that the bitterness was over, Xiao Chen got what he wanted, and his lifespan increased to 2,000 years. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as Elder Qin's hand was about to touch the Emperor's door, flaming clouds suddenly filled the sky. Layers of blazing flames covered the sky and the sun. The unending flaming clouds were like waves, undulating. It was like a sea of fire reflected in the sky. Suspicion appeared on Xiao Chen's face. He felt that something was wrong. "Senior Lan, what is that?" Lan Chaofeng's expression changed drastically in extreme shock. "That's impossible. This is a fire dragon tribulation. It is extremely rare. Normally, only outstanding talents or golden emperor's road occasionally appear. Right after Lan Chaofeng spoke, the flaming clouds quickly gathered together. Soon, the silhouette of a huge dragon appeared in the sky. It reared its head back and roared ferociously, causing the entire sky to tremble. This, Xiaochen felt somewhat helpless. He could only rely on himself for his great tribulation of wind and fire. Others could not help him. Otherwise, he would suffer a backlash from the heavenly Tao and die. Such a result made the expression of Shui Lingling, who rushed over from afar, sink. She watched all this in disbelief. Far away, on the sea, Xiao Hoju and the others, who had already traveled far, were stunned when they saw the fire dragon appear. After a while, Xiao Hoju rejoiced. It's a fire dragon tribulation. It looks like the heavens want to break the dragon's gate's luck. A fire dragon tribulation rarely appears on the emperor's road. Even when outstanding talents undergo their tribulations, it is very difficult to see one. To think that Elder Qin ran into one. Chapter 1323. Tian Yushi analyzed calmly, it must be caused by the dragon's gate's luck being too strong. Elder Qin is already tied to the dragon's gate. The dragon's gate is like a huge true dragon. If Xiao Chen is the dragon's head, then Elder Qin is the dragon's claw. Or perhaps it is the other parts. This is a tribulation for the dragon's gate. If it were another outstanding talent undergoing a tribulation, perhaps it would be a good thing. However, since it is Elder Qin's turn, he will die for sure. That was right. If an outstanding talent survived the fire dragon tribulation and advanced to martial emperor, their emperor's body would possess the energy of a fire dragon, and their strength would multiply. However, Elder Qin was not an outstanding talent at all. He was just an ordinary blue-robed emperor. This fire dragon tribulation was not something he could endure. On the small island, Xiaochen revealed an extremely dissatisfied expression. After working so hard for so long, in the end, he still could not give Elder Qin hope. Heartache, guilt, and various other emotions filled Lan Chaofeng's heart, making him feel strangely angry. Lan Chaofeng shook his head and sighed softly, all sorts of feelings welling up in him. At the end of the Emperor's Road, Elder Qin, who had thought that the bitterness was over, smiled bitterly and revealed an expression of despair. The fire dragon formed by the cloud sea instantly took form. It opened its huge maw and roared ferociously. Then, it dived down as if it wanted to swallow up Elder Qin, who was holding the Emperor's door. Freeze! Just at this critical moment, the three-life mirror in the immortal spirit ring shone its light on that incredibly huge fire dragon. Time seemed to have stopped. The fire dragon's head, which had been descending at lightning speed, became incomparably slow. In this strange atmosphere, Elder Qin could not understand what was going on. However, after a while, he reacted and used the last bit of his strength to push the Emperor's door with much difficulty. The Emperor's Road had drained Xiao Chen's law energy long ago. He was mentally fatigued, and his entire body felt weak. Originally, he only needed to raise his hand to push the Emperor's door. Now, it was incredibly difficult to do. It was not much faster than the descending fire dragon head, a heart-wrenching sight. Amid this strange scene, Elder Qin finally pushed open the Emperor's door just as the fire dragon head was about to swallow him up. Boom! Boundless multicolored light gushed out from the Emperor's door. The surging primordial energy formed a tricolored auspicious sign that covered the entire sea region, filling the sky. A golden light engulfed Elder Qin, and his body dissolved in the golden light. The moment the Emperor's door opened, the terrifying fire dragon immediately vanished, turning into fiery red flowers that scattered in all directions. Seeing Elder Qin's body dissolve in the golden light, Xiao Chen and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Qin's body was being reconstructed. He used the power of the heavenly Tao to forge the golden emperor body for Elder Qin. In midair, the three-life mirror swayed and fell continuously. Xiao Chen strode forward and leaped into the air, grabbing hold of the swaying three-lives mirror. In the mirror, Little Three smiled weakly and said, "Hee hee, I finally let this old man become a martial emperor." Elder brother White Robes, stop frowning. I'm so tired. Little 3, I want to sleep. As Little 3 spoke, her voice grew softer and softer. Finally, it vanished, and the mirror turned black. This startled Xiao Chen, and he paled. Little 3, wake up. Wake up. Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, said, don't wake her up. Let her have a good sleep. This Naga really overestimated herself. To think that she changed the trajectory of time by herself. Xiao Chen asked in a fluster, Ao Jiao, what's going on? Ao Jiao explained, the 3-life mirror is a space-time immortal equipment in the first place. It is used to assist immortals in executing space-time magic skills. After all, even immortals have difficulty grasping the time Tao. With the 3-life mirror, one can achieve twice the result with half the effort when executing the time Tao. You know now, right? She is a support-type immortal equipment, but she used this identity to change the trajectory of time by herself. Xiao Chen now understood. Simply put, Little 3 was offside. She forcefully used strength that exceeded her own and suffered a backlash. She will be fine, right? Ao Jiao sighed and said, she won't die, but she will suffer. If she messes around like this again, even a deity might not be able to save her. When Xiao Chen heard that, he relaxed slightly. Then, he carefully put away the 3-life mirror, not knowing what to say. This Little 3 nagged a lot. However, at the crucial moment, she could still be so understanding of the greater good. However, Xiao Chen still had some doubts. Making a move to stop the great tribulation of wind and fire would result in the punishment of the heavenly Tao. Both parties would suffer a tribulation. Why were Little 3 and Elder Qin fine? Xiao Chen, was that your secret treasure earlier that changed the trajectory of time? Lan Chaofeng asked with a grave expression. The time Tao was something that even primes could not comprehend. Xiao Chen felt somewhat put on the spot, not knowing what to say. When Lan Chaofeng saw the situation, he said, I understand. This matter is probably not easy to explain. Thank you, Senior, for understanding. Lan Chaofeng smiled and said, what is there to understand? This old man was just curious and asked casually. Right now, I do not even understand the state of space. Being fortunate enough to see the state of time, it is hard for me to not lose my composure. Shui Lingling said, look, the reconstruction of Elder Qin's golden body is complete. Amid the auspicious signs filling the sky, the golden light suddenly shrank and gathered into a clump of light, continuously combining. Between the heavens and the earth, countless spiritual qi from all directions converged towards the glowing figure. Instantly, the place where the golden light gathered became the center of the world, covering up all the other lights. Xiao Chen smiled faintly, feeling happy for Elder Qin. He also anticipated such a day for himself. Xiao Chen watched as the auspicious signs filled the sky, dancing in the air. Amid the golden light, Elder Qin reconstructed his golden body. Xiao Hoju, who was wildly rejoicing earlier, revealed a horrified expression. Even now, he could not understand this dramatic scene. The moment the fire dragon descended, the trajectory of time changed, forcibly stopped by the 3-life mirror's item spirit. However, in reality, time did not change. As a result, Xiao Hoju and the others, who were 50 kilometers away, only saw a blurry scene. They only saw the fire dragon roaring as it arrived. Following that, the Emperor's door opened, and countless strands of primordial energy surged out. Then, the fire dragon scattered. Tian Yushi frowned and said, this matter is somewhat strange. When we return, we have to report it to Emperor Forsaken. Feng Wuji also felt suspicious. He said, a sure-death situation was broken just like that. It is indeed strange. If Xiao Chen could use the same method to deal with his great tribulation of wind and fire, then we might only be able to watch as Xiao Chen advanced to martial emperor. Xiao Hoju shook his head and said, that's impossible. There is absolutely no chance of using such an incredible heaven-defying method a second time. If Xiaochen dared to do that, his great tribulation of wind and fire would definitely change, becoming even more horrifying. In reality, it was as Feng Wuji said. What he said was not wrong. However, even if it could be used, it could not be used anymore. If the three-life mirror forcefully reversed time, it would not be able to endure it and collapse on its own. The losses outweighed the gains. In the future, if Xiaochen comprehended the time Tao on his own, with the three-life mirror's assistance, he would be like a tiger with wings, like a god helping him. Whoosh! Sonic booms resounded, and the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang rushed over. With an angry expression, he said, Tian Yushi, didn't you say that you would definitely stop Elder Qin from undergoing his tribulation? Why did you not do it? How dare you speak to the divine daughter like that? The deity race martial emperor said with a cold expression as he stepped forward. His emperor's might containing a divine nature spread out, putting heavy pressure on Ao Lang. Ao Lang could not help feeling startled. This deity race martial emperor before him probably relied on himself to climb to martial emperor and not the power of faith. There were two types of emperor Wu in the deity race. One relied on the power of faith to advance to martial emperor, with their own strength as a supplement. This type was the most numerous. The deity race claimed to have 3,000 deities. 80 to 90% of them were this type. The other type was scarier. They relied on their own strength to advance to martial emperor, with the power of faith as a supplement. They were relatively few in number. However, they were the mainstays of the deity race and were extremely strong. Sorry, I was somewhat rude. Divine daughter, please forgive me. Ao Lang felt dissatisfied, but he still lowered his head and apologized. This woman before him could be considered the most respected woman in the entire Kunlun realm. Even if she was not as strong as him, he could not offend her casually. Tian Yushi was in a bad mood because of Shui Lingling. Now that he was angry, he did not give Ao Lang any face. He snorted coldly and said, Do I need to account to you? What qualifications do you have to question me? Ao Lang, from the start to the end, I never agreed to stop Elder Qin from undergoing his tribulation. When Xiao Hoju saw the situation, he tried to smooth things over. He said, Senior Ao, this is a long story. I will explain it to you later. I was the one who told the divine daughter to give up. She has a divine talisman that Emperor Forsaken refined, which can instantly kill a minor heavenly Emperor Wu, but she did not use it. When Ao Lang saw the situation, he asked in shock, why? Feng Wuji smiled and said, Senior Ao, it is probably not limited to how strong Xiaochen is now. If we really used it, none of us would be able to leave. Some of us would definitely fall here. The deity race greater heavenly martial emperor said coldly, Ao Lang, I guessed right. You should have some trump cards. If you rely on your trump cards, it is impossible to wash away the humiliation of that day. Your only choice is to submit to my deity Dao Union. Don't have any other thoughts. Ao Lang nodded and said, Yes. 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 Before a huge faction like the deity Dao Union, Ao Lang was like an ant. Even if he was not satisfied, he could only pretend to be a grandson for now. Tian Yushi continued, half a month from now, a deity palace will be established in the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace. At that time, we will erect a deity statue for Senior Ao. Senior Ao's strength will definitely soar again. The moment Xiaochen said that, Ao Lang immediately rejoiced in his heart. The deity race's power of faith was a famous weapon in the Kunlun realm. If Ao Lang could construct a deity statue for Ao Lang, he would not have to risk his life to undergo his tribulation and would be able to raise his strength by 20%. However, Ao Lang was astute. After thinking about it, he concluded that there would not be such a good deal. Tian Yushi would definitely make a request. Indeed, Tian Yushi said, however, before that, I hope Senior Ao can lead the way and convince the other 3 Dragon Kings to join my deity Dao Union. Ao Lang quickly weighed the pros and cons in his heart. Then, he smiled and said, That's not a problem. With me asking, the other 3 elder brothers will definitely not reject. When Tian Yushi and the other 2 heard that, they revealed smiles on their faces. Although they did not succeed in stopping Elder Qin from advancing to Martial Emperor and disrupting the Dragon's Gate's luck in the heavenly starry ocean, they managed to open a path for the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas. However, this opened up the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas, allowing the deity Dao Union to successfully expand its influence into the heavenly starry ocean. Chapter 1324. However, those immortal holy lands would be harder to deal with. Tian Yushi thought to himself, of these immortal holy lands, the lunar palace holds the highest prestige. To a large extent, they will be influenced by the lunar palace. Perhaps I should make some time to meet that famous holy daughter of the heavenly starry ocean, Yu Bingyun. As long as I can convince her, the other immortal holy lands will give in easily. When the deity Dao Union takes shape, overwhelming luck will descend. In terms of luck, the divine Sun Di Wuk would be qualified to rival Shao Chen. On the small island, Elder Qin, who had finished reconstructing his golden body, drifted down, radiating light from his entire body. His initial air of being past his prime was swept away. Instead, he became full of vigor, like he had obtained new life. Many thanks. Many thanks. Many thanks. When Elder Qin landed, he first thanked Lan Chaofeng and Shui Lingling. Then, he faced Shao Chen and bowed 3 times. This Qin really does not know how to thank you. Little friend Shao Chen, you have done too much for me. Shao Chen smiled and said, Old Qin, there is no need to be so polite. Now, you are a member of the Dragon's Gate. Furthermore, Shao Chen, owe you a great debt of gratitude in the past. This is what I should do. Oh, by the way, what happened at the very last moment? I accidentally pushed open the Emperor's door, Elder Qin asked, feeling somewhat confused. Lan Chaofeng smiled mysteriously and did not explain. Old Qin, feel for yourself and see if there is fire dragon energy in your body. Elder Qin closed his eyes and tried to sense it. When he opened his eyes again, there was a fire dragon swimming in each of his eyes. The fire dragons coiled in his eyes and turned into a blazing flame. Elder Qin shouted and raised his hand, throwing a palm strike at the distant sea. Flaming clouds immediately filled that part of the sky, forming a fire dragon radiating an overwhelming heaven dragon might as it swooped down. Z. Z. As the mist surged, a huge pit appeared in the vast sea. After a while, it formed a whirlpool and kicked up a huge wave. This, Elder Qin said with some incredulity as he entered a daze. Lan Chaofeng laughed loudly and said, if one survives a great calamity, there will definitely be consequences. Elder Qin, you were supposed to be an ordinary Emperor Wu, but after going through the fire dragon tribulation, you have the power of the fire dragon. In just a month, I'm afraid you will be comparable to an ordinary third heaven Emperor Wu. Congratulations. Shao Chen and Shui Lingling said with a smile. Elder Qin was overjoyed, and his face was full of smiles. Anyone who received such a pleasant surprise would find it hard to restrain themselves. Lan Chaofeng sighed, even old Qin has such strength when undergoing his tribulation. In the future, when those juniors of the Dragon's Gate succeed in their tribulation, the glory of the Dragon's Gate will be just around the corner. Congratulations, Brother Qin, on becoming a martial emperor. In the sky, many figures floated over. They were the other Emperor Wu who had been driven away by Shao Chen. They congratulated him. At this time, Shao Chen naturally wouldn't chase them away. You're too polite, too polite. Elder Qin guffawed and performed cupped fist salutes in return. His face filled with smiles, looking very pleased. Now that he had ascended to the heavens in one step, he was also an Emperor Wu with a lifespan of 2,000 years and the power of the fire dragon. How could he not be happy? More people gathered. Some of the martial sages in Heaven Dragon City also rushed over. After they offered their congratulations, they fought to be the first to snatch the auspicious signs in the sky. The extraordinarily bustling scene added a joyous atmosphere to Elder Qin's ascension to martial emperor. This elder Qin is really lucky. Although there are many people who advance to martial emperor now, most of them die with hatred in their hearts. It was not easy. Earlier, I saw the deity race's warship flying over. Unexpectedly, the Blue Dragon King Xiaoqin managed to withstand the pressure, not letting the other party succeed. The Blue Dragon King is truly incredible. If I had such a sect master, able to protect me, I might have been able to advance to martial emperor back then. He is not just incredible. Even the Holy Lord could not be such a righteous person. All sorts of discussions rang out. Xiaoqin revealed a smile on his delicate face. Then, he quietly withdrew to an inconspicuous corner. He did not try to steal Elder Qin's limelight. Right now, this was the proudest moment of Elder Qin's life, allowing him to receive the many envious or jealous gazes. One should enjoy life to the fullest. There was no need to hold back, just laugh. On a protruding hill on the small island, Xiaoqin smiled as he watched Elder Qin greet the many people who came to congratulate him. Figures flickered in the sky. The cultivators who managed to snatch the auspicious signs rejoiced. Auspicious signs not only represented a good omen but could also directly increase a cultivator's cultivation. Once one advanced to martial emperor, it would be very lively. Xiaoqin took out the 1,000-year flame that Imochen brewed. Then, he swirled the purple crystal cup and took a sip, letting the fiery wine flow freely in his chest. The bustling scene before him made it hard for Xiaoqin not to think of himself. In the future, could he be as lucky as Elder Qin, successfully walking the Emperor's road to completion? If Xiaoqin ran into a similar fire dragon tribulation, while Elder Qin could get little three to help, he definitely could not. He could only face it head-on. By watching Elder Qin undergo his tribulation, Xiaoqin gained a lot from his great tribulation of wind and fire. Naturally, the most direct gain was a direct understanding of the great tribulation of wind and fire. He knew what the Emperor's road, the Emperor's door, and the great tribulation of wind and fire were like. Although Elder Qin's great tribulation of wind and fire could not compare to Xiaoqian's, it could not be avoided as a reference. Ha! Elder Qin succeeded in his tribulation. Why are you drinking alone instead? At some point, Imochen had arrived. She gently drifted over and sat down beside Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin took out a wine cup and offered it to Imochen. He smiled and said, "It is true that I am drinking, but it is not boring. Don't you feel that drinking the 1,000-year flame at this moment is especially good?" Imochen looked at the extraordinarily bustling scene in front. After a while, she smiled and said, "Indeed. The state of the 1,000-year flame lies in the inextinguishable hot-bloodedness. The fire in the chest will not extinguish for 1,000 years. It is a kind of pursuit, a kind of perseverance, just like a cultivator's emperor's road." Xiaoqin smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, the person who brews wine knows more than I do. Although I know these principles, I do not know how to express them." After chatting for a while, Imochen said, "Let's not talk about this for now. I came to give you something. You will definitely like it." Imochen knew that Xiaoqin was not as happy as he appeared to be right now. He was happy that Elder Qin advanced to martial emperor, but it inevitably stirred up some worry in his heart. Imochen intended to use another topic to divert Xiaoqian's attention. However, how could Xiaoqin not understand what she was doing? He smiled, appearing very interested as he asked, "What is it?" "This." Imochen took out an ancient Buddhist lamp. The shape of the lamp looked like a lotus flower, simple and unadorned. It contained a lingering Zen intent, looking very tasteful. Xiaoqin looked at it for a while. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he recalled something. This is a Buddhist lamp that can nurture a flame. Under the veil, Imochen smiled faintly and nodded gently. "You made it? Hee hee. You think too highly of me. How could I make it for you so quickly? Perhaps you are lucky. I got people to keep an eye out at the Blue Dragon auction house. Who knew? I really found it." Imochen smiled happily. Then, she continued, after the lamp oil is refined, you can nurture the heavenly snow divine flame. However, the Buddhist lamp's quality is not high enough, so it can only nurture the flame to rank 3. As Shaochen held the Buddhist lamp, he revealed joy on his face. Right now, the heavenly snow divine flame was too weak. As a primal chaos level flame, it was somewhat unpresentable. However, once its quality increased, it would be completely different. Rank 3 was already sufficient. Mo Chen, you are very considerate. Thank you. Mo Chen giggled and said, don't be happy too early. The 10,000-year-old frost water used to refine the lamp oil is not easy to find. Shaochen thought for a while. Then, he took out a portion of the icy dew that he collected in the sky dome immortal realm. Then, he asked, will this do? This is derived from the heavenly snow divine flame slowly dissipating. Mo Chen took it and examined it. Then, she said excitedly, this is the top quality 10,000-year-old frost water. It will do. Give me 3 days, and I will be able to help you refine the lamp oil for the Buddhist lamp. No, we cannot waste time. I'll go and prepare it now. Mo Chen held the jade bottle containing the icy dew and rushed off, not even bothering to greet Shaochen. As Shaochen watched Mo Chen leave, he smiled faintly. Mo Chen was even more nervous than he was. The commotion slowly died down. Lan Chaofeng and Elder Qin returned to the city to host a banquet to entertain the other cultivators. Due to some reasons, Shaochen rejected the invitation and did not go with them. After everyone left, the average-sized island immediately turned quiet. Shaochen looked up and discovered that his first senior sister had not gone over. The profound sun bird, which had already shrunk, perched on her shoulder as she slowly walked over to him. What's wrong? You are not going as well? Shaochen asked. Shui Lingling shook her head and smiled. I'm going. Why wouldn't I go? I'm not like you who like peace and quiet. However, before I go, I have something to ask of you. Master instructed me to do. When Shaochen heard that, he put away his wine cup, feeling startled. As a prime, Big Brothering rarely asked for help. However, now, he got Shui Lingling to ask him for help. Perhaps some things were more serious than Shaochen imagined. What is it? Just say it. I will do my best to do what I can, Shaochen said seriously. The Haotian Prime was the first major character to step forward to support him. No matter how big the help was, Shaochen had to help. Shui Lingling organized her words before saying, originally, the Haotian sect and the 3 holy masters were in a stalemate. However, the 3 holy masters could no longer wait. Recently, they joined the deity Dao Union that Emperor Forsaken heads. The Haotian sect's situation immediately turned dangerous. Deity Dao Union? Shaochen had never heard of this organization before. He had only heard a little about it from Tian Yushi today, but he did not understand much about it. After Shui Lingling explained it to him, Shaochen's expression changed. The might of this deity Dao Union was truly unimaginable. Master wants you to find some reinforcements in the oceanic world. If the deity Dao Union attacks the Haotian sect in the future, you can send reinforcements, Shui Lingling said as succinctly as she could. Shaochen nodded and said, I will not shirk from this. I will depart in 3 days. However, I do not know how many people I can get to agree to help. I will do my best. The Haotian sect and Shaochen were bound together. If the 3 holy masters took full control of Bushan Palace, Shaochen would definitely not be able to survive. Even if the Haotian sect did not make this request, now that Shaochen knew about it, he would have to do something. He could not just sit and wait for death. Shui Lingling smiled and said, don't worry. Master said that as long as you are willing to make a personal appearance, you will definitely gain something. A great calamity is approaching. Only you have hope. Others can see this hope as well. Chapter 1325. The arduous Emperor's Road, the deity Dao Union's relentless pressure, and the demonic calamity sweeping up the entire Kunlun realm. Under the heavy pressure, the word hope was somewhat heavy for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could give hope to Elder Qin and the Kunlun realm. However, who could give hope to him? 3 days later, Mo Chen successfully refined the special lamp oil. After filling the Buddhist lamp, she handed it to Xiao Chen. Alright, take out the heavenly snow divine flame and place it on this Buddhist lamp. With a thought, Xiao Chen opened his mouth and spat out the heavenly snow divine flame from his heart of an emperor. The dim heavenly snow divine flame seed looked like a patch of white snow, giving off a gentle beauty. This made it easy to overlook the ferocious nature of a primal chaos-level flame. Xiao Chen found it somewhat strange that the Adumbra flower seed in the flame had taken root in his heart of an emperor and did not fly out with the flame seed. However, this was not the time to be concerned about this. After the heavenly snow divine flame landed on the Buddhist lamp, it immediately lit up. Buddhist chanting rang out in the surroundings, filled with Zen intent. Mo Chen was intoxicated by this. Flames go from weak to strong, divided into 9 ranks. Right now, the heavenly snow divine flame does not qualify. Although the Buddhist lamp nourishes it, it will take about half a year to advance to rank 1. With the support of an esteemed monk, it should be much faster. Xiao Chen thought for a while before taking out the Sarira of the Mahasvara Buddha and letting it hover over the lamp flame. Immediately, rings of Buddhist light appeared, and the Buddhist chanting became even more profound. There was a vague image of a Buddha in the center of the Buddhist light, supporting the lamp flame. That was the remnant wish energy of the Mahasvara Buddha. Big brother Xiao Chen, you really have a lot of fortuitous encounters. This is a Buddhist Sarira. It is much stronger than the support of an esteemed monk, Mo Chen said somewhat excitedly. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and opened his right hand. The Buddhist lamp slowly sank into it along with the heavenly snow divine flame. Xiao Chen had refined a beautiful mountain and river painting in his right hand. The painting was damaged and had not been repaired. Now, it was perfect for this Buddhist lamp. I'm leaving. I'll be back in half a month or 3 months at most, Xiao Chen said softly after placing the Buddhist lamp. The deity Dao Yunyan pressed on. He needed to leave, to fight for hope for the Haotian sect, for the Kunlun realm, and for himself. What was there to hope for? He couldn't ask for it. Only fight with others, fight with oneself, fight with the heavens. After leaving Heavenly Star Island, Xiao Chen did not choose the Black Sea as his first stop. He also did not go to the even further Human Demon Sea. The 13 great bandits of the Black Sea and the Human Demon Sea's Duga Kuang should be easy to convince. Xiao Chen had already spoken to the 13 great bandits of the Black Sea, so he knew that it would not be a big problem. This was especially so for the 13 great bandits of the Black Sea. They were easier to convince. However, the deity Dao Yunyan was very strong. Just these reinforcements alone could not truly block them. Xiao Chen was going to search for new allies. He set his sights on the heavenly starry ocean, and his first stop was the Myriad Fiend Island. The Myriad Fiend Island was the fiend race that ruled the oceanic world, with the Myriad Law Fiend Master as their leader. Compared to the fiend race of the Kunlun continent, the Myriad Fiend Island did not have much of a connection. The Myriad Fiend Island was very strong. This was especially so for the Myriad Law Fiend Master, who was a prime. No one dared to offend him. The difficulty of convincing the Myriad Fiend Island went without saying. However, opportunities and hope had to be fought for. If one did not fight for it, there would be no chance at all. If one fought for it, there would always be a chance. 3 days later, Xiao Chen arrived at the sea region where the Myriad Fiend Island was, a vast sea region filled with life. Back when little Yellow Feather was born, Xiao Chen had barged in by mistake and even fought with a fiend race archer. He knew that the entrance to this sea region looked calm and peaceful, with only a few islands here and there. In reality, it was heavily guarded. If one was not a member of the fiend race, they would be discovered immediately. Even if one was a member of the fiend race, it would be very difficult to sneak in if one did not have a clear background. Based on Xiao Chen's experience today, there should be a large formation laid at the entrance to this sea region. The dotted islands looked irregular, but in reality, they were the nodes of the formation. There were at least 1,000 of these scattered islands, covering a radius of 5,000 kilometers. The defenses of the myriad fiend islands' outer sea were clear. Just as Xiao Chen was thinking, 3 figures flew over from an island in the distance. Sonic booms rang out, and the 3 figures landed before Xiao Chen in mere moments. A red-haired fiend in the middle looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Who are you?" The myriad fiend island is currently sealed off and does not welcome outsiders. After the Thunder King disappeared, the Kunlun realm fell into chaos. The heavenly starry ocean could not avoid it either. The myriad fiend island was a remote place and had sealed off long ago. They did not want to take advantage of the chaos to plunder others or get involved in trouble. When Xiao Chen heard that, he felt slightly stunned. Then, he smiled to himself. While this looked cautious, in reality, it was just waiting for death. An unprecedented demonic calamity descended. No one in the Kunlun realm could avoid it. The Dragon's Gates. Xiao Chen seeks an audience with the myriad law fiend master. Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute as he looked at the 3 fiend race cultivators in front. When the 3 fiend race cultivators heard Xiao Chen's name, they were all startled, feeling somewhat incredulous. The name of the Blue Dragon King, Xiao Chen, had already spread far and wide. Very few people did not know of him. The red-haired fiend was rather calm. He asked, "What proof do you have?" "I don't remember the Blue Dragon King's hair being white." Xiao Chen removed the Blue Dragon King's insignia from his chest and tossed it over without saying anything. The red-haired fiend caught it and examined it cautiously. The ancient insignia had azure-colored dragon motifs carved on it. When the red-haired fiend touched it, he seemed to hear a dragon roar. "It's real," one of the fiend race cultivators at the side said. As they looked at Xiao Chen, their expressions immediately changed. Their initial doubts turned to awe. Although the Blue Dragon King was not considered a peak major character, he still had some deterrence. After returning the insignia, the red-haired fiend said, "The 2 of you, bring the Blue Dragon King through the 1,000-star array. I will go back and report." The 2 fiends led Xiao Chen through the massive and complicated 1,000-star array. As Xiao Chen walked through it, he could feel a perception sweeping over him. There were even a few times when he felt a sense of danger. After passing through the 1,000-star array, the scene before Xiao Chen suddenly changed. An incredible island appeared before his eyes. The island was tens of thousands of meters tall, with many rings stacked on top of each other. As it stood on the surface of the sea, it looked like a majestic mountain rising from the ground. Xiao Chen was deeply shocked. He had never seen such a large and tall island before. Even the immortal statues he had seen before could not compare to this. Is this the Myriad Fiend Island? Why does it feel like calling it the Myriad Fiend Mountain is more appropriate? Aside from this island, there were no other islands in the sea region for tens of thousands of kilometers. It seemed like all the fiends in the sea region lived there. Who knew how prosperous this island was? "Brother Xiao Chen, how come you have the time to come to the Myriad Fiend Island?" A person dashed across the water in the distance. With every step, the surface of the sea rumbled, kicking up towering waves. That person laughed loudly as he approached. When this person got closer, Xiao Chen clearly saw that it was the heavenly spiritual body Di Xinhan, whom he had met at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. "You too can withdraw. I will entertain Brother Xiao Chen." Di Xinhan walked over quickly and waved his hand, dismissing the 2 fiend race guards. "Yes, young master." After the fiend race guards bowed, they left respectfully. After not seeing Di Xinhan for a few years, Di Xinhan's strength had increased significantly. However, he had not reached the level of a consummation blue-robed emperor and condensed the vague form of a heart of an emperor. However, Di Xinhan was only a small distance away. He had sufficient fortuitous encounters, and he could break through at any time. Di Xinhan had improved a lot. However, compared to the demonic geniuses of the Kunlun realm in the astral battlefield, he was still somewhat lacking. However, Di Xinhan had the heavenly spiritual body. In a real fight, he might not be at a disadvantage. As Xiaochen sized up Di Xinhan did the same. After a while, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. I dozed off. When I opened my eyes, I discovered that I could not even see your back. Xiaochen said calmly, Brother Di, you are too humble. I obtained the method to condense the heart of an emperor by chance. In the future, when I advance to martial emperor, your accumulations are not bad either. Di Xinhan smiled gently and said, let's not talk about this for now. Can you tell me what you are here for? When my uncles heard that you were here, they all came out. This is very rare. Can you tell me why in advance? Xiaochen felt excited. It looked like the upper echelon of the fiend race was still very well informed, even though they had sealed up their information. They had a clear understanding of the situation in the Kunlun realm. Perhaps this would make things easier. Xiaochen had a deep impression of this fiend race outstanding talent, who was willing to fight him fairly in the past. After thinking for a while, he told Di Xinhan the truth. After hearing that, Di Xinhan stopped and looked at Xiaochen in shock. Brother Xiaochen, did I hear wrong? You are here to persuade my old ancestor? Xiaochen asked, what's wrong? Is it very difficult? Di Xinhan smiled bitterly and replied, it is too difficult. This great-grandfather of mine has always been a man of his word. In my memory, no one has ever persuaded him before, not even in the past 1,000 years. When Xiaochen heard that, he was flabbergasted. Then, he smiled and said, I'll give it a try. A great calamity is coming. No one can avoid it. I believe that Senior Fiend King can see it clearly. Di Xinhan nodded and smiled. You are ambitious. However, the ones in charge of Myriad Fiend Island right now are my uncles. Great-grandfather has not appeared for a long time already. If you want to see the old ancestor, you will have to go through my uncles. Just this group of people is enough to give you a headache. Oh, right, if you did not mention it, I would not have noticed. 2 days ago, people from the deity race came. At that time, I was cultivating and did not pay much attention to this news. Now that you mentioned it, they must be here for the deity Dao Union. Xiaochen frowned slightly. This was not good news. The deity Dao Union was already strong enough. To think that they had not given up on any faction worth roping in. The two chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at Myriad Fiend Island. The bustle of the island surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. This was his first time seeing so many fiend race cultivators. Some of them had not even taken human form yet, walking the streets in their true forms. Such a scene could only be seen on Myriad Fiend Island. The islands surrounded each other, stacking on top of each other as they rose. The higher they flew, the denser the spiritual energy became. With Di Xinhan leading the way, the journey was smooth. No one questioned them. After a few kilometers, they were already deep in the clouds. The buildings on the islands looked even more ethereal, indistinct like immortal palaces. Chapter 1326. As Xiaochen entered, he completely forgot that this was an island. It was like a heavenly palace. The deeper he went, the more unfathomable he found it. That is Fiend King Peak. My uncles are all there. Di Xinhan pointed to a peak in the clouds and took the lead to fly over. The vast clouds undulated. Walking in them was like walking in the sea, an extremely peculiar sight. The peak had been shaved into a huge platform with a vast drill ground. Several fiend race experts were currently exchanging moves with each other. Several gazes landed on Xiaochen, revealing curious expressions as they whispered to each other. That is the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen. I heard that the 3 Vice Island Masters are gathered in the Fiend King Palace. What a grand show. Aside from some of the major characters of the Holy Lord, it seems like the 3 Vice Island Masters have never gathered together before. Could it be that Xiaochen is now equal to the major characters? I wonder if he is truly capable to be as miraculous as the rumors say. That's true. The rumors are too miraculous. It feels surreal. Given the sharpness of Xiao Chen's spiritual sense, he could even hear these voices. However, his heart was already as calm as still water, not minding them at all. Behind the drill ground was a tall, majestic platform with huge stone steps. Xiao Chen and Di Xinhan walked up step by step. When Xiao Chen stood on the tall platform, he looked around and saw 3 unfathomable fiend-race old men with auras as heavy as mountains. They sat cross-legged on stone pillars, looking at him. When Xiao Chen met these gazes, he felt a slight prickling sensation on his skin. That was because the gazes were too sharp. This was especially so for one of the gazes, which seemed to be able to see through Xiao Chen, not leaving him any secrets. However, Xiao Chen was no ordinary person who could see through him. With just a slight resistance, he resolved the other party's gaze. Di Xinhan stepped forward and introduced, "This is my first uncle Di Feng. He is an 8th heaven sovereign martial emperor, no weaker than the 3 holy lords of the human race. These 2 are my second uncle and third uncle, both of them have the strength of the 6th celestial layer Emperor Wu." Level 6 was a hurdle. If he could not overcome it, he would forever be a greater celestial Emperor Wu. Once he crossed it, he would be crowned king. Xiao Chen cupped his hands and greeted them one by one. His gaze focused on Di Feng. Needless to say, Di Feng's position was definitely the highest among the 3 Vice Island masters. "Sit." Di Feng extended his hand toward a stone pillar, gesturing for Xiao Chen to sit down. With a light tap of his feet, Xiao Chen imitated the 3 deputy island masters and sat cross-legged on it. Di Feng had a calm look in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "Among the immortal holy lands, the myriad fiend island is the most desolate and boring. Since the Blue Dragon King has come from afar, there is no harm in telling us directly. We demons are not good at beating around the bush. If you have something to say, just say it." As this 8th heaven sovereign martial emperor spoke, the emperor's might of this 8th heaven sovereign martial emperor spread out without a trace, spreading throughout the entire place. So. The gazes of the 3 Vice Island masters all landed on Xiao Chen at the same time. The entire place instantly turned somewhat oppressive and heavy. When Di Xinhan saw this, he could not help breaking out in a cold sweat for Xiao Chen. The might of the 3 martial emperors seemed to be directed at him. This was especially so since Xiao Chen was sitting cross-legged. If he was not careful, he might embarrass himself and fall off. However, Di Xinhan could not say anything in this situation. If Xiao Chen could not even get past this hurdle, there was really no point in talking. The more important thing was that there were many elders of the myriad fiend island hidden behind the 3 uncles, watching Xiao Chen. Speaking of which, Di Xinhan was the only one who was engrossed in cultivation and did not understand the situation outside. The upper echelon of the myriad fiend island more or less knew why Xiao Chen was here. Everyone knew that the deity Dao Union's momentum was flourishing. With the addition of the 3 holy masters, the Haotian sect was immediately pushed to a dead end. Xiao Chen and the Haotian sect were interdependent. There had to be a deeper meaning to him coming to the myriad fiend island at such a sensitive time. When the emperor's might surged over, the pressure on Xiao Chen multiplied. However, the Taiji Dao had already raised his mental state to the next level, comparable to that of a prime. The Taiji force field spread out in a small area. Xiao Chen gently waved his hand, and the pressure immediately scattered with the wind. Xiao Chen's small move startled the 3 Vice Island masters. To think that he could so easily resolve the pressure of their auras. The Haotian sect is facing a great calamity. I would like to ask the myriad fiend island to help us at the crucial moment, Xiao Chen said bluntly. Interesting. Your Haotian sect is facing a great calamity. What does that have to do with our myriad fiend island? The grey-clad old man on Di Feng's left said with some mockery. The black-clad old man on Di Feng's right said in a similarly cold voice, Blue Dragon King, you are really direct. You dare to say anything. Why should the myriad fiend island help you? Di Feng frowned and waved his hand to stop the 2 from speaking. Then, he looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Truth be told, the deity race's envoy just left and invited the myriad fiend island to join the deity Dao Union. I did not agree or reject. I just want to ask, Blue Dragon King, what kind of conditions can you offer?" When facing an immortal holy land like the myriad fiend island, Tian Yushi and the others would definitely not compare it to the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace. The conditions that the deity race offered were very high. This made the other two Vice Island masters view Xiao Chen with some enmity. Xiao Chen shook his head and smiled. "I cannot offer any conditions." The moment Xiao Chen said that, the other two Vice Island masters immediately revealed expressions of disdain. The group of fiend race elders hidden in the shadows also burst into an uproar, feeling surprised. Even Di Xinhan felt somewhat startled. Could this brother Xiao Chen have come alone? When Di Feng heard these words, a trace of indescribable information flashed in his eyes. He quietly withdrew his emperor's might, and laughed heartily as he said, "Interesting. As expected, heroes come from the young. In front of me, you actually dare to take advantage of me empty-handed." Xiao Chen, in the eyes of us old fellows, from the start to the end, none of us truly believe that you are the Blue Dragon King. The other party was a true major character, an eighth heaven sovereign martial emperor, an existence comparable to the three holy masters. He was indeed qualified to say such words. Oh no! The three uncles are all angry. Di Xinhan thought to himself, "Oh no." Then, he said, "Uncle Feng, perhaps Xiao Chen has not thought things through yet." That's why. Di Feng waved his hand to stop Di Xinhan from speaking. Then, he looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Don't say anything. Let him speak. I just want to know who gave him the guts to be so frivolous before me, boasting shamelessly." Di Feng's gaze was piercing, and his words forced Xiao Chen into a dead end. The two Vice Island masters at the left and right revealed cold expressions. At the same time, they rejoiced in their hearts. This Xiao Chen did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. With one sentence, he said that he could not offer any conditions, directly offending Big Brother. When Xiao Chen said those words, he did not care about his own strength at all. He did not know what that meant. Countless gazes on the tall platform, some in the open and some in the dark, looked at Xiao Chen at the same time. This caused the atmosphere to become extremely stifling. Everyone waited quietly for Xiao Chen to speak. If he did not answer well, Di Feng might directly throw him out of Myriad Fiend Island. This would cause Xiao Chen to lose all face. He knew the consequences of speaking carelessly before a major character. If Xiao Chen quickly apologized and negotiated properly, there might still be a chance. Di Xinhan felt very anxious. However, when he looked at Xiao Chen, he did not panic at all. He did not know what Di Feng was trying to do. Xiao Chen avoided Di Feng's gaze. His eyelids drooped as he muttered to himself. Without any confidence, he said softly, "I am only speaking the truth. I am indeed unable to come up with any conditions. I do not have any intention of disrespecting Senior. My Dragon's Gate has just been established. No matter how much I offer, I cannot compete with the deity race. I will always be suppressed." The two Vice Island masters on the left and right snorted coldly and said, "At least you know your limits. Since you know that, then scram quickly. Myriad Fiend Island will not help the Haotian sect avoid this calamity." Ignoring the mockery of these two, Xiao Chen continued, "Since that is the case, then why am I here to offer any conditions? The deity race offered such a great condition, but Senior Di Feng did not agree. Isn't that because he was waiting for me?" Right after Xiao Chen spoke, he raised his eyelids slightly. A brilliant light flashed in his eyes, and he unleashed his aura without holding anything back. Xiao Chen's head of white hair moved without any wind. As his hair fluttered, it seemed like the hum of countless sabers could be heard. This was the aura that could be casually displayed when one's saber Dao reached an extremely high level. The moment Xiao Chen said that, the entire place fell silent. The two Vice Island masters who mocked him were so shocked by Xiao Chen's words that they could not close their mouths. How could Shao Chen be so confident, daring to show off his sharpness before a sovereign martial emperor? Could it be that Di Feng was really waiting for him? Shao Chen, now that the Thunder King is not here, do you really think that you are the Blue Dragon King? Big brother, just chase him away. To think that you dare to be so unbridled in Myriad Fiend Island. Shao Chen, you must be tired of living. The two Vice Island masters at the left and right showed furious expressions, revealing murderous intent on their faces. Shao Chen's confidence and arrogance thoroughly angered them. Furthermore, the two vaguely felt that something was wrong. Di Feng, the one with the greatest authority, looked incredibly furious and pressuring. However, in reality, it was just as Shao Chen said. These two Vice Island masters had received many benefits from the deity race in private. Furthermore, they had obtained great promises. They simply could not allow anything unexpected to happen. Left without a choice, the two Vice Island masters could only turn hostile and stand up. Compared to the rage of the two Vice Island masters, the person in question, Di Feng, appeared strange and unfathomable. He was strangely calm with a smile on his face. Ignoring the two enraged Vice Island masters, Shao Chen gently pushed off the ground and landed. Then, he took a step forward and arrived in the middle. Shao Chen looked straight at Di Feng and enunciated every word clearly. Senior Di, please tell the two Vice Island masters and the many fiend race seniors present if I was wrong. Whoosh! Immediately, everyone's gaze focused on Di Feng, this eighth heaven sovereign martial emperor. The surroundings fell silent. Everyone held their breath, anxiously waiting to hear Di Feng's decision. At this moment, Di Xinhan felt admiration in his heart. This brother Shao Chen is truly courageous. His bearing is extraordinary. Even before Uncle Feng, he can maintain such a demeanor, showing off his sharpness. After all, an eighth heaven sovereign martial emperor was a major character through and through. After holding a high position and accumulating power over a long period of time, one's aura would be so strong that it could subconsciously make others feel inferior and passive. Before everyone's eyes, Di Feng smiled gently and said, "That's right. I, Di Feng, have been waiting for you. Blue Dragon King Shao Chen. Indeed, you have not disappointed me, Di Feng." Chapter 1327. What? The expressions of the two Vice Island masters on the left and right changed drastically in disbelief. The hidden fiend race upper echelon was similarly startled. To think that what Shao Chen said was actually true. However, Shao Chen wanted the Myriad Fiend Island to side with him without stating any conditions. That would be too much of a loss. Not only would they not be able to gain any advantage, but they would also have to face a huge faction like the deity Dao Union. The gray-clad old man on the right said sullenly, "Big brother, did you say it wrong or did I hear wrong? That was not what you said when the deity race's envoy came." The third-ranking black-robed old man also said anxiously, "Big brother, have you really thought this through? The deity race agreed to help us forge deity statues. Furthermore, they even told us the method to cultivate the power of faith in its entirety. This is a great benefit." Dong! Dong! Footsteps resounded. The many fiend race powerhouses hiding in the dark all walked out with cold expressions. As they looked at Di Feng, they all showed confused expressions. Without a doubt, these fiend race upper echelon all had the cultivation of Emperor Wu. There were more than 10 of them. They were all minor heavenly Emperor Wu, ranging from first heaven to third heaven. There was one eighth heaven sovereign martial emperor, two sixth heaven greater heavenly Emperor Wu, and 10 odd minor heavenly Emperor Wu. Shao Chen now had a clear understanding of the Myriad Fiend Island's strength. With the addition of a prime, the Myriad Fiend Island's strength could be considered at the peak of the immortal Holy Lands. Island Master D, you cannot push our Myriad Fiend Island into a pit of fire. We want to meet the old ancestor and ask him to make a decision. That's right. We want to meet the old ancestor and let him make a decision. Let the Fiend King make the decision for us. We absolutely cannot stand on the wrong side. The group of fiend race upper echelon all voiced their dissatisfaction, wanting Di Feng to make a new decision. Di Feng remained unmoved. He said calmly, "Go ahead and meet him. Not to mention that the old ancestor will not meet you, even if he does, it will be useless. My intentions are the old ancestor's intentions. The old ancestor personally instructed me to test Xiao Chen. If I am satisfied, I can make a decision. I don't believe it. I don't believe that the ancestor would make such a decision." The other two Vice Island masters shouted in shock. Di Feng's expression sank. "Impudent. All of you shut up." Boom. A powerful king's might spread out, causing the crowd to fall silent. Di Feng obviously had a high prestige on the Demon Island. No one dared to express their dissatisfaction when he got angry. "I'll say it again. This is the ancestor's will." After pausing for a moment, Di Feng looked at Xiao Chen and said, "However, just because I'm satisfied doesn't mean that I've agreed to it. I haven't made my decision yet." "Xiao Chen, do you understand what I mean?" Xiao Chen replied softly, "Naturally, I understand. Senior wants me to prove that I have the possibility of advancing to Martial Emperor. If there is no such possibility, even if Senior appreciates me, you will not let the Demon Island jump into the fire pit." Di Feng burst into loud laughter. "It's really easy to talk to smart people. If you were a little older, we could have become bosom friends." After saying that, Di Feng shifted his gaze and looked at the group of fiend race elders behind him. Then, he pointed at them and said, "Didn't you all express your dissatisfaction earlier? I'll give you a chance. Whoever is dissatisfied can personally chase this Blue Dragon King out." The moment Di Feng said that, the group of fiend race elders immediately started whispering to each other. The Blue Dragon King, Xiao Chen, was very famous. Furthermore, he had killed Emperor Wu in front of everyone. His strength was extraordinary. Naturally, chasing Xiao Chen out was something to be proud of. However, if they failed and ended up getting beaten up instead, they would lose all their face. The fiend race dilly-dallied, but no one stepped forward. Such a scene did not surprise Di Feng. He shook his head slightly and remained silent. "How about we attack together?" Just as the many fiend race elders whispered to each other, no one daring to take the lead, Xiao Chen suddenly said something shocking. Di Xinhan was startled when he heard that. His jaw nearly fell off. Is brother Xiao Chen crazy? That is more than 10 Emperor Wus. Many of them are third heaven martial emperors. This Xiao Chen is going a little overboard. Even the usually calm Di Feng was somewhat shocked. Xiao Chen's words had indeed exceeded his expectations. "Blue Dragon King, don't look down on us. Do you really think that there is no one capable in the fiend race?" A tall and sturdy fiend race male stepped forward. His figure flashed, and he directly punched at Xiao Chen. Clearly, Xiao Chen's words were too arrogant. This person was somewhat angered and could no longer endure it. Xiao Chen looked around and determined this man's strength. He was a third heaven martial emperor, Emperor Wu. However, he was not at the peak of a minor heavenly Emperor Wu. Xiao Chen could deal with him easily. The burly man punched out, and the entire space on the high platform trembled slightly. A strong wind howled, and the waves surged deafeningly. This was one of the consummate techniques of the Myriad Fiend Island, the Divine Wind and Wave Fist. One needed to cultivate two wills in order to cultivate this consummate technique to the peak, reaching the might of a medial grade profound martial technique. Elder Han is making a move. Elder Han's Divine Wind and Wave Fist has already been cultivated to the peak. Few Third Heaven Emperor Wus would dare to clash head-on with him. With him making a move, even if he cannot defeat Xiao Chen, he can at least let him know how powerful he is and not dare to boast again. The two Vice Island Masters also nodded to themselves. With Han Lei making a move, even if Xiao Chen lost, he could stop Xiao Chen's rising momentum. The air of a king coming from Xiao Chen made the two feel some fear. They could not allow Xiao Chen's momentum to continue rising. They had to suppress him. Strong winds blew and waves surged. The man flew over with a flourishing aura. It was like he stood at the peak of the wind and waves, looking down at Xiaochen from above. Xiaochen did not move at all. Even though this fiend race Emperor Wu was already 10 steps away from him, he still did not move. Just as the man's fist, which contained both the will of strong wind and the will of waves, was about to land on Xiaochen, Xiaochen moved. Within the strong wind and waves, Xiaochen seemed like he had turned into a fish. He gently swung his tail and dodged the punch in an inconceivable manner. To many people, Elder Han's punch had clearly landed on Xiaochen. However, Xiaochen managed to dodge it. This scene was exactly the same as when Xiaochen caught the immortal fish in Frostwater Lake. He clearly felt like he caught it, but he caught nothing. Oh no! The punch with the flourishing aura struck empty air, startling Elder Han. Then, he soared into the air and retreated frantically. However, as Xiaochen dodged, he had already made a move. Xiaochen judged Elder Han's retreating trajectory and grabbed Elder Han's wrist. It was like Elder Han had delivered himself to Xiaochen. It was incredibly strange. Boom! Elder Han roared ferociously and punched with his left hand. He drove all the primordial energy in his body, and this punch was fast and urgent, displaying Elder Han's excellent reflexes. Xiaochen smiled faintly, and his primordial energy split into two, one yin and one yang, forming a simplified Taiji force field within 10 meters. Due to the Taiji force field, Elder Han's fast and urgent punch met with heavy resistance. Xiaochen was clearly right in front of Elder Han. He could strike Xiaochen's face in an instant. However, he could not do so. Instead, Xiaochen used the force to fight back. He grabbed Elder Han's wrist and swung it gently. Elder Han's body, which was in the air, spun around. Xiaochen's raised arm moved smoothly like flowing water. It looked neither fast nor slow as he used the back of his hand to strike Elder Han's left chest. The two primordial energy under Xiaochen's feet, one bright and one dark, chased each other, forming a Taiji circle. This made Xiaochen look agile and graceful. Elder Han vomited a mouthful of blood as he flew back 100 meters and landed heavily on the ground. Elder Han could not understand what was going on at all. He charged over with a ferocious aura, but Xiaochen casually tossed him away like he was a toy. He didn't suffer any serious injuries, but his face was completely lost. When everyone looked up, they were shocked. Xiaochen sent a third heaven martial emperor, Emperor Wu, flying with one move with one hand. Xiaochen withdrew his hand and stood upright. Then, he looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, do you still think that I spoke impudently? In my life, I have never overestimated myself, biting off more than I can chew. However, I will not underestimate myself or undervalue myself. Senior D, please speak up and give Xiaochen a chance to prove himself, to prove that he is not an arrogant person who speaks nonsense. Prove himself and give Myriad Fiend Island hope. Prove that Senior D did not misjudge me." Seeking a fight. Xiaochen took the initiative to seek a fight. His fighting spirit blazed like fire, giving off a faint light that no one dared to look at directly. That was the pride and confidence in Xiaochen's heart. In this life, he would never overestimate himself or underestimate himself. Di Feng's gaze revealed a trace of contemplation. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that Di Feng was in deep thought. Naturally, he could tell that Xiaochen's earlier performance had not used much strength. Instead, it was more of a technique. Borrowing force to fight force, using little effort to push back a lot of force, was not rare in the martial epoch. Di Feng knew this himself, and he was even an expert in this field. However, he had never seen it before. Borrowing force to fight force was able to be as calm and unruffled as Xiaochen, graceful, quiet, and peaceful. Di Feng was different from the others. He thought more deeply. This technique of Xiaochen's should be a unique Dao. It was far from as simple as borrowing force to fight force. The entire place turned solemn. No one dared to underestimate Xiaochen anymore. Even the two Vice Island masters at the left and right could not say anything due to Xiao Chen's aura. Fighting 10 Emperor Wu alone. If Xiao Chen truly possessed such strength, what else could they not be convinced of? Di Feng did not say anything. He looked at the two Vice Island masters at the left and right. If the Blue Dragon King can fight 10 of my fiend race elders alone and remain undefeated, I will be convinced and will not say anything more. Right, as long as the Blue Dragon King remains undefeated, I will have no objections. No matter where they were, the strong would receive the respect that they deserved. Clearly, Xiao Chen had already used his actions to prove his strength, obtaining the respect of the two Vice Island masters. In the two's opinion, as long as Xiao Chen remained undefeated, he was qualified to convince them. The reason was none other than the fact that even though the two of them were 6th Heaven Greater Heavenly Emperor Wu, they found it somewhat taxing to face 10 Minor Heavenly Emperor Wu. However, Xiao Chen was not even a martial emperor, yet he had the guts to fight 1 against 10. Anyone would be convinced. Island Master D, please give us a chance. We are willing to fight the Blue Dragon King. 10 fiend race elders stepped forward and knelt on one knee, speaking in unison to Di Feng. Chapter 1328. Di Xinhan showed a slightly stunned expression. He had never seen such a scene in his life. He had never seen a person who could convince the proud fiend race elders to be willing to work together to fight the same person. As cultivators, they all had their pride. This was especially so for Emperor Wu, who was extremely proud. For a junior who had not advanced to martial emperor to say that he wanted to fight 1 against 10, this was a form of contempt, a kind of mockery. Under normal circumstances, no one would care about such a thing, feeling that they were lowering their status. The pride in their hearts would not allow them to do so, either. However, today, on this Fiend King platform, Xiao Chen did it. He used his strength to prove that he was qualified to fight 1 against 10. This was not contempt or mockery. This was a fair battle between cultivators. Di Feng remained silent. Xiao Chen's aura flourished in the front, wanting to challenge him. The 10 elders behind him stepped forward and did the same. Island Lord D, please agree to our request. We are willing to fight the Blue Dragon King. The 10 fiend race elders, who were kneeling on one knee, spoke again. The fighting spirit in their hearts blazed like fire, soaring to the clouds. For no particular reason, it was for the honor of the fiend race. If the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen wanted to prove himself, so did they. Very well. Since you want to fight, then let's fight it out in full swing. I, Di Feng, will personally beat the war drum for you. Di Feng stretched out his hand and smacked the empty space where Xiao Chen was standing. Boom! The terrain of the platform immediately changed. The empty space under Xiao Chen soared into the air. 4 palaces flew over from the clouds at the same time. Bang! 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 They merged with the tall platform under Xiao Chen's feet. There was an ancient fiend race oil lamp on each of the 4 palaces. Boom! The oil lamps lit up, and the blazing flames formed an invisible barrier encasing the palaces. As the flames burned, they gave off a blazing light like the sun, scattering all the clouds above Fiend King Peak. Everyone in the entire Fiend King Island saw this clearly, feeling startled. The light is like the sun, illuminating the sky. That is the ancient arena of Fiend King Peak. What's going on? This ancient arena hasn't appeared for thousands of years. Could it be that someone has issued a challenge to the 3 Vice Island Masters? Let's go and take a look. The Demon Island has not been so lively for a long time. So. Fiend race cultivators soared into the air from the rings of Myriad Fiend Island, rushing towards Fiend King Peak. A war drum stood in the corner of the arena. Di Feng's figure flashed, and he arrived beside the war drum. The sound of air being torn rang out. 10 demon clan elders flew onto the stage at the same time and lined up in a row. Blue Dragon King, please enlighten me. The gazes of the 10 people were sharp and filled with battle intent. This battle was of great importance, so they couldn't be careless. Xiaochen cupped his hands, bowed, and took 2 steps back. Dong! A war drum sounded, deafening like a clap of thunder. As the sound waves spread out, the boundless clouds and mist dissipated, and the Demon King Peak became clear again. If one looked from the bottom of Myriad Fiend Island, they would discover that a sun had suddenly appeared in the sky. It's the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen. He wants to challenge the 10 Supreme Elders of our Myriad Fiend Island alone. Did I see wrong? You did not see wrong or see wrong. Island Master D is personally beating the drum. That is the Heavenly Fiend drum, which has not sounded for thousands of years. This is too crazy. Several Fiend race cultivators rushed over from the air near Fiend King Peak. They all exchanged looks with each other in disbelief. Crazy? Not crazy at all. In a one-on-one fight, without exposing too many of his trump cards, Xiaochen's strength would be equal to that of a peak 3rd Heaven Martial Emperor, Emperor Wu. A peak 3rd Heaven Martial Emperor, Emperor Wu, would not be able to fight against 10 alone, he would be dragged down to death. However, the Taiji Dao borrowed force to fight. Its movements were unpredictable. Even if there were twice as many people, Xiaochen would still be able to hold on and remain undefeated. In this Kunlun realm, the Taiji Dao was Xiaochen's one and only trump card. Only he could fight against 10 alone, proud and confident, showing off his sharpness. Dong! Another drum rang out, igniting the flames in everyone's hearts in the arena. However, after the 3rd drum beat, Di Feng suddenly increased his speed. The ear-splitting drum beat resounded in the sky. The battle hunger of both sides soared. In the end, the 10 Fiend race elders did not have the same mental state as Xiaochen. They shouted and took the initiative to attack. The moment they attacked, they used inferior-grade profound martial techniques. They were extremely ferocious, pressing forward with an indomitable will, not holding back at all. Clearly, the Fiend race wanted to end the battle quickly, not giving Xiaochen any chance to drag things out. They used a thunderous barrage of attacks to strike Xiaochen. The seemingly overwhelming attacks were complicated and densely packed, covering the entire sky. In reality, when the Fiend race elders attacked, they moved in waves of 3, orderly and orderly. They connected one after another, pushing forward layer by layer like the waves of the sea, unending. The cooperation between the 10 Fiend race elders could be said to be perfect, without any flaws. Xiaochen did not dare to underestimate them. In an instant, he separated the Saber Domain and the Taiji Force Field. However, he did not merge them. Tyrannical Dragon breaks the sea. Wind roaring in the 9 heavens. Heaven extinguishing Divine Chop. The first wave of profound martial techniques surged over like the waves of the sea. Xiaochen did not draw his saber, executing the subduing dragon profound chop to clash head-on. Retreat. The moment they clashed, Xiaochen was knocked back 100 meters. The difference in strength was somewhat obvious. It was too much for one person to face 3 profound martial techniques alone. If not for the Taiji force field, he would have been knocked back even more. The merciless sea. Dragon roaming the 4 seas. Rage soaring. Right after the first wave of attacks faded, the second wave of attacks turned into an even more ferocious wave, charging over. Xiaochen's figure spun around, and lightning descended from the sky. He completely unleashed his peak state of thunder, using the Thunder Dragon Chop to clash head-on again. Retreat. The waves swallowed up the Thunder Dragon, and blood leaked out of a corner of Xiaochen's lips as he moved back another 100 meters. Thump. 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 The war drums were even louder than thunder. The third wave of the most powerful attack arrived with the speed of a thunderclap that left no time to cover one's ears. Like before, Xiaochen did not draw his saber. Instead, he calmly looked around. 3 waves of attacks, 3 people in each wave. There was still one person missing. If Xiaochen was right, the last person would be the killing blow. Howling strong wind. Merciless cold snow. Soaring raging fire. the third wave of attacks was different. The three attributes were brought out to their limits, mixing together and launching the strongest attack at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's figure twisted as he took 3 steps back. With each step, his body twisted at least 1,000 times, leaving behind many afterimages. When he could no longer retreat, Xiao Chen used the Thousand Frost Battle Snow Profound martial technique to clash head-on. Bang! Xiao Chen vomited blood. This time, Xiao Chen moved back 100 meters. His complexion was pale, he was clearly severely injured. Again. The Fiend Race elders shouted in unison. Wave after wave of attacks surged over. The three attacked in one wave. When the third wave was over, the first wave was more or less ready. With such continuous attacks, even Fourth Heaven Martial Emperor Wu would have to kneel. Amidst the beating of the war drums and the arena that was as bright as the sun, wave after wave of attacks cycled through the arena countless times. Suddenly, before Xiao Chen could land after enduring the first wave of attacks, a sword light silently appeared. By the time Xiao Chen discovered it, it was already at his side. In the next moment, it would strike Xiao Chen. This sword strike was not only fast, accurate, and ruthless, but it also came from a crafty angle. The attacker waited for Xiao Chen to exhaust himself. After enduring several waves of attacks, when his mind was extremely fatigued, the attacker instantly attacked. It had to be said that this was an extremely brilliant move. What's going on? Where did this person come from? When Di Xinhan saw this sword strike that suddenly appeared, he was startled. His mind was already immersed in it. Each wave was stronger than the one before. Amid the tsunami-like attacks, Di Xinhan completely forgot that there was still one person who had not appeared yet. It was not just Di Xinhan. Several people did not expect this sword strike that suddenly appeared from the side. They were startled and caught off guard. Their hearts leaped into their throats. The surging waves of attacks were already hard enough to deal with. Now, there was another sure-kill sword strike. How were they supposed to deal with this? I was waiting for you. Xiao Chen, who had been suppressed for a long time, revealed a sharp glint in his eyes. Thousands of afterimages merged as he instantly drew the lunar shadow saber. In his sea of consciousness, a sun-like saber energy exploded at the same time. The light was too dazzling, plunging the place into darkness. When the light reappeared, Xiao Chen had already sent out a saber strike. Xiao Chen chopped the sword of the sure-kill sword into pieces. The saber light was dazzling, and its might did not diminish as it continued to hack down. Not only did the swordsman fail in his sneak attack, but he even got knocked back by Xiao Chen's saber strike. The strong saber intent shattered the battle armor on that swordsman's body. Wounds covered his body as he tumbled to the ground. What was soul-stirring? The scene before Di Xinhan's eyes was soul-stirring. Everyone thought that that sure-kill sword strike would reduce Xiao Chen to a sorry state, throw him into disarray, or even defeat. Just when their hearts leaped to their throats, the sure-kill sword strike ended up being countered by someone else. This dumbfounded and flabbergasted everyone. Could it be that Xiao Chen had been holding back during that overwhelming attack, waiting for that last person? Di Xinhan's heart, which had risen to his throat, thumped heavily, pounding endlessly. Damn it! I really cannot watch this fellow's fight. My heart is about to jump out. Di Xinhan's heart, which had risen to his throat, suddenly slammed down. It pounded heavily, pounding endlessly. Damn it! I really cannot watch this fellow's battle. My heart is about to jump out of my chest. The two Vice Island masters, who had changed their opinion of Xiao Chen, stood up in shock, not daring to believe it. The two Vice Island masters, who had changed their opinion of Xiao Chen, immediately stood up in shock, not daring to believe it. This is my Demon Clan's joint attack technique. If I didn't know this joint attack technique, I would have suffered a lot from the repeated attacks. How could this little guy be so calm? His mental state is a little terrifying. As the saying goes, amateurs watch the excitement, while experts see the artistry. The two Vice Island masters could tell at a glance that this reversal had something to do with Xiao Chen's frighteningly calm mental state. It could even be said that they were directly related. Di Feng, who was beating the war drum, had split his attention to observe the situation of the battlefield. When he saw this sudden reversal, he did not feel surprised. The show has only just begun. This little guy has a complete set of Dao, which is extremely suitable for fighting against many. After reading it, I might be able to gain something. As a sovereign martial emperor, Di Feng could see even further. His gaze was unfathomable. He imprinted every move of Xiao Chen in his eyes. At the same time, his mind was constantly simulating and analyzing Xiao Chen's various movements. Chapter 1329. The more he analyzed, the more he found it terrifying. Although each of Xiao Chen's actions seemed simple, there was a deep meaning behind them. That mysterious Grand Tao was far from being as simple as borrowing force to fight force, and it was deep, distant, and unfathomable. Then let's fight even more intensely. A lofty sentiment that had not appeared in his heart for a long time surged out. The drumming suddenly rose another pitch. Dong dong dong. The distant drumbeats merged the lofty aspirations and hot-bloodedness of this sovereign martial emperor. The sound of the war drum reached deep into the soul of everyone in the arena. Xiao Chen was influenced by this war drum. His heart pounded, and in the depths of his soul, he could hear the drum beat. The blood in his body boiled and burned. Suddenly, his fighting spirit charged into the clouds. Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed, and he no longer tried to resist the drumbeat. He allowed the drumbeat to sweep through his body from the depths of his soul. All right, then let's fight. Taiji Saber Domain. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, the Saber Domain and the Taiji force field merged. The Saber intent turned into dragons, one bright and one dark, one yin and one yang. As they chased each other, they formed a vast Taiji diagram. Xiao Chen stepped in the middle. Seeing another wave of attacks coming, he took a step forward. It was as if his body had suddenly disappeared. All of his aura and attacks had been concealed. The three demon race elders who had just arrived lost their target and were momentarily stunned. Break! While they were stunned, Xiao Chen suddenly appeared and slashed with his saber, throwing the three of them into confusion. In this Taiji Saber domain, Xiao Chen's figure was faintly discernible, appearing and disappearing, sometimes in the light and sometimes in the dark. Once the 9 demons were thrown into disorder, they could no longer regroup. Gather together, don't panic. Be careful, Elder Feng. He's going to your side. No, wait, Don't panic, don't panic. We'll retreat one by one. When Xiao Chen drew his saber and broke that killing move, the situation of the battlefield tilted in Xiao Chen's favor. One man and one saber, with white hair and white robes, left the 9 fiend race elders flustered, unable to put up any resistance. The dragon roared incessantly, and the saber intent did not cease. The power of Taiji moved both fast and slow, changing unpredictably. It did not take long for the 9 elders to be riddled with injuries, and each of them wanted to retreat. Can you return it? Xiao Chen muttered to himself. The 2 dragons under his feet merged as he executed the Taiji Yin-Yang chop. Within the Taiji Saber domain, this chop was as fast as lightning, disappearing in an instant. The armors and shields of the 9 demon clan elders shattered at the same time. After spinning around, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and floated down. Boom! The Taiji Saber domain exploded, dealing the final blow to the 9 fiend race elders. The vast saber intent was like a torrential rain. Space in the surrounding engine room exploded. By the time Xiao Chen landed on the ground, there was no one else standing in the arena besides him. All of them were covered in cuts and bruises, lying on the ground and howling in pain. However, these fiend race elders all had the golden body of Emperor Wu. Xiao Chen had held back when he attacked, so they did not suffer any fatal injuries. Otherwise, his Taiji Yin-Yang chop would not have been as simple as breaking the defenses of these fiend race elders. The sound of the war drums came to a sudden stop. Di Feng had not expected such a result. Di Feng had guessed that the Taiji Dao would not be so simple, just borrowing force to fight force. However, he had not expected that when he truly erupted, it would be so horrifying. The white-clad Xiaochen calmly walked out of the cloud of dust. Senior Di, have I proven myself? Di Feng was slightly distracted. After a while, he guffawed and said, let's go. Without saying anything else, Di Feng soared into the sky with Xiaochen, heading for the highest level of Myriad Fiend Island. The surrounding fiend race cultivators exclaimed. Di Xinhan's expression changed slightly as well. We are going to meet the old ancestor. The Myriad Fiend Old Ancestor was in closed-door cultivation all year round, never coming out. Meeting him was like ascending to heaven for regular people, it was simply impossible. Even if Di Xinhan wanted to meet him, it was somewhat impossible. The summit of Myriad Fiend Island was hidden in the thick clouds. To the fiend race, it was like a divine platform. The remaining two Vice Island masters recovered their wits and quickly followed, soaring into the sky. By the time they caught up to Di Feng, they discovered that Xiaochen was already gone. Only Di Feng stood alone in the clouds, looking at a mountain peak. That was the highest point of Myriad Fiend Island, the place with the densest spiritual energy. At the same time, it also suppressed the Myriad Fiend Island's luck. That mountain peak in the clouds was filled with mystery. At the same time, there was a strong might and pressure that deterred others from approaching. It was like they were afraid of disturbing a deity. Where is Xiaochen? The two Vice Island masters asked. Di Feng pointed to that mysterious mountain peak, not saying anything. The two Vice Island masters appeared dispirited. They sighed and said, he really went up. The last time I personally met the old ancestor was 1,000 years ago, before he advanced to martial emperor. Are we really going to agree to him and reject the deity race? Di Feng said indifferently, the two of you can forget about the benefits that the deity race offered. Joining the deity Dao Union will bring us many benefits. However, it will ruin the future of the entire Myriad Fiend Island. The old ancestor will definitely not agree. The two Vice Island masters blushed slightly, feeling somewhat embarrassed. Indeed, by joining the deity Dao Union, they, the upper echelon, could increase their strength and obtain all sorts of benefits. However, in the long run, the lower echelons of Myriad Fiend Island would be assimilated, unable to leave the deity race. However, why does the old ancestor want to meet him? Big brother, you should be able to make decisions about the Myriad Fiend Island now, right? Indeed. Who is the old ancestor? Even Emperor Forsaken does not dare to underestimate him. Why does the old ancestor want to meet him alone? The two Vice Island masters found this somewhat strange. They could not understand no matter how much they thought about it, feeling very suspicious. Di Feng smiled faintly and said, you do not understand. Because you are not strong enough, how can the world that the old ancestor sees be the same as the world that we see? My guess is that the old ancestor and that Haotian Prime have similar goals. They both want to find their own fortuitous encounters from this youth. Their own fortuitous encounters? The other two exchanged glances, still feeling confused. The old ancestor still stood at the peak of the Kunlun realm. As a prime, why would he need a fortuitous encounter? After passing through the layers of clouds, Xiaochen felt that he had broken through layer after layer of barriers, layer after layer, as though there was no end to them. Whoosh! Suddenly, the clouds parted, and the scene before Xiaochen changed. Then, he landed on a mountain peak, and his body drifted down. At the summit of the mountain peak, an old man with white hair, white eyebrows, and a white beard sat cross-legged on a stone pillar. This old man looked very ordinary. However, his eyes were deep and bright, filled with an ancient aura. Who knew how many vicissitudes he had seen? Xiaochen was startled. This was the famous Myriad Law Fiend Master. To think that this was the true appearance of the famous Myriad Law Fiend Master. Xiaochen had seen several primes, Emperor Forsaken, the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, the Haotian Prime, and the Fox King. Aside from the overwhelming aura of primes, they all had an aura of transcending the mundane and returning to their natural state. This white-bearded old man before Xiaochen also had such an aura. Xiaochen was sure that he was the Myriad Law Fiend Master. "Greetings, Senior Fiend Master," Xiaochen said with a cupped fist salute. The Myriad Law Fiend Master said calmly, "It looks like you passed Defeng's test. Tell me, how did you do it?" Xiaochen was flabbergasted. As a prime, could it be that the Myriad Law Fiend Master did not know what happened earlier? That was definitely not the case. There must be some other important reason, something extraordinary. Who knew? The Myriad Law Fiend Master's next words rendered Xiaochen speechless, at a loss for what to do. "You don't have to find it strange. Most of the time, I'm staring at the sky in a daze. I do not have the leisure to look at things." Staring at the sky. A prime staring at the sky in a daze. Xiaochen did not dare to probe further. He answered honestly, telling the Myriad Law Fiend Master how he passed Defeng's test. After the Myriad Law Fiend Master heard that, a strange look flashed in his eyes. 1 against 10. Strange. Little fellow, you clearly only have the strength of a peak third heaven martial Emperor Wu. How did you manage to fight 1 against 10? Xiaochen was about to explain in detail when the Myriad Law Fiend Master gently tapped the air, and a water screen appeared in the air. Figures flickered in the water screen, replaying the scene of Xiaochen fighting the 10 Fiend Race Elders. The Myriad Law Fiend Master nodded repeatedly. Occasionally, he rewound some of the scenes, watching them several times. The steps of the fish dragon art were broken down into countless layers of afterimages. Xiaochen could see all the trajectories clearly. Xiaochen felt startled in his heart. However, he did not know how this water screen was made. This is an emperor treasure of the Myriad Fiend Island, the Heavenly Shark Mirror. It was refined from the eyeball of an old Heavenly Shark Fiend. Everything that happens on the Myriad Fiend Island can be seen by this Heavenly Shark Mirror. As the Myriad Law Fiend Master looked at the scene, he spoke at the same time, dispelling Xiaochen's doubts. "Not bad, not bad. Did you comprehend this yourself? Movement and stillness, fast and slow, light and dark. It is like you can merge everything that opposes time," the Myriad Law Fiend Master said as he looked at Xiaochen after dispelling the water screen. Xiaochen nodded and said, "This is the Taiji Dao." This junior comprehended it by chance. Taiji. The Myriad Law Fiend Master gently tapped the air, and a Taiji diagram appeared in the air. 2 streams of black and white energy, swam around in the diagram. It looked like the great Tao of the world could be derived from it. The Myriad Law Fiend Master shook his head and stared at the Taiji diagram. "It is too thin. It feels like it is missing something. However, it is rather interesting. I can play with it for a while." When Xiaochen heard this, he felt it was strange. Why does it seem like this Myriad Law Fiend Master is extremely bored? He has been here for so long, but he has not discussed any serious matters. "Senior, do you agree to help the Haotian sect at a crucial moment?" Xiaochen asked uncertainly, feeling somewhat nervous. The Myriad Law Fiend Master nodded casually. "Since Defeng agreed, I will naturally help. You may leave." "Leave?" Xiaochen felt that his thoughts could not keep up. He only took a glance and muttered a few words to himself. Then, the Myriad Law Fiend Master dismissed him. "Wait a moment. Your physical body cannot keep up. You should be cultivating the Blue Dragon Body Nourishing Art, right? You only managed to cultivate the 2nd layer. You are far inferior to the Qing Emperor back then. You probably did not collect enough secret treasures containing dragon souls." The Myriad Law Fiend Master seemed to know everything. After thinking for a while, he tossed out a spatial ring to Xiaochen. "Here are some secret treasures refined by the descendants of the older generation fiend dragons after they died. Consider it a greeting gift for you." "Right, it is fine now." Chapter 1330. As Xiaochen held the ring, he was in a daze. He could sense that this myriad law fiend master was indeed an expert. However, why did this expert feel somewhat unreliable? Great chaos had already started, and a great calamity was approaching. However, this old man did not seem anxious at all. "Senior, may I ask if you know the whereabouts of the Thunder King?" Xiao Chen vaguely felt that this seemingly unreliable fiend master actually had great means and was extremely incredible. As the myriad law fiend master stared at the Taiji diagram before the Thunder King, a rare fluctuation appeared on his face. A sorrowful expression appeared on the myriad law fiend master's face as he sighed. "Why are you asking this? Even if you know, could it be that you can go and find him? I do not dare to go to that place. Ingzongtian does not dare to go there. Emperor Forsaken does not dare to go there either. In that case, all the more you cannot go." "Why?" When Xiao Chen heard this, he was startled. Unexpectedly, this old man really knew the whereabouts of the Thunder King. Because since ancient times, aside from the Qing Emperor from 10,000 years ago, no one has ever returned alive. No one knows whether they are dead or alive, and their whereabouts are unknown. The myriad law fiend master said indifferently, "Hence, you can stop thinking about this problem. When you are strong enough, you will naturally know where that old fellow, the Thunder King, went." "Many thanks, senior." Xiao Chen thought for a while and gave this old senior a deep look. Then, without saying anything more, he performed a cupped fist salute and left. The myriad law fiend master ignored Xiao Chen. He stared at the Taiji diagram and muttered to himself, "Taiji, yin and yang merged into one diagram? How did this little fellow do it? What a headache. Had I known, I would have left this little fellow behind and given me a proper explanation." If Xiao Chen heard this, he would definitely be speechless for a long time. He came out. He came out. Seeing Xiao Chen come out, Di Feng and the other two revealed expressions of joy. The two Vice Island masters rushed forward and asked, "Blue Dragon King, what did the old ancestor say to you? Tell us." Right. What did the patriarch say?" Xiao Chen found it a little strange. After meeting the patriarch, these two deputy island masters had been unreasonably enthusiastic. Di Feng smiled helplessly. "Second brother, third brother, don't scare our guests. Xiao Chen, please don't be offended. The ancestor's status in our myriad fiend island is even higher than that of a deity." That was not all. The two of them clearly revered the Demon King from the bottom of their hearts. Xiao Chen sorted out his thoughts and roughly explained what happened when he met the Demon King. After saying that, the two Vice Island masters were astonished, and they looked at Xiao Chen with a trace of reverence. "Impressive, Blue Dragon King. The patriarch actually spoke so much to you and even gave you something. Truly amazing. Looks like Big Brother made the right choice. Back then, when the ancestor saw me, he barely said a few words before impatiently sending me away." After Xiao Chen heard this, his heart finally calmed down. It turned out that the Demon King treated everyone like this, not just me. Di Feng smiled and said, "It is not too late for the two of you to have such thoughts now. Quickly go and make arrangements with the outside world. Return all the things that the deity race gave us." Yes. Since the patriarch has spoken, how could we dare to disobey? I will pass on the patriarch's words. Those elders will not dare to object. The two of them received their orders and left. Before they left, they looked at Xiao Chen enviously. After the two of them left, Di Feng said to Xiao Chen, "Don't be fooled by the patriarch's indifferent appearance. In fact, he knows everything. If a person knows everything and has no expectations, how could he show enthusiasm? So, don't mind him." Xiao Chen nodded and said, "I don't mind. I am already very satisfied with the patriarch's promise. The patriarch gave you secret treasures containing dragon souls. It looks like he values you a lot. You do indeed have an opportunity that caught his eye." Di Feng patted Xiao Chen's shoulder and smiled. "Go back and take a look." These secret treasures containing dragon souls should give you a pleasant surprise. After remaining on Myriad Fiend Island for 3 days, Xiaochen left silently, heading for the next holy land. However, a storm was brewing in the heavenly starry ocean. The words, Deity Tao Union, suddenly rose up, becoming known to everyone. Although the Deity Tao Union had only been established for a short time, all sorts of news about it had already spread throughout the heavenly starry ocean. This was especially so after the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas announced that they would join the Deity Tao Union. This caused the Deity Tao Union's prestige to soar. Several ancient noble clans and many of the 9 ranks of the great families were trying to find out information. More or less, they all wanted to join the Deity Tao Union. Now that the Kunlun realm was in chaos and a great calamity was approaching, the peak experts were all in danger. The appearance of the Deity Tao Union was like a whirlwind blowing in the heavenly starry ocean. The news spread at a horrifying speed, becoming known to everyone. Furthermore, the news that the Deity Tao Union would attack the Haotian sect and completely rule the Kunlun continent also spread like wildfire. Immediately, all sorts of rumors about the Haotian sect spread everywhere. Everyone could feel that in this chaotic world, a storm was brewing rapidly. However, just as everyone thought that the Deity Tao Union would defeat the Haotian sect, the 2 vice island masters of the Myriad Fiend Island suddenly revealed that the Myriad Fiend Island would help the Haotian sect at its most crucial moment, lending a hand to the Blue Dragon King. The moment this news spread, it caused a huge commotion. Many people did not expect this. As a peak holy land, the Myriad Fiend Island actually chose to side so early. After the news of Xiaochen fighting against 10 alone and subduing many fiend race elders spread, everyone understood what was going on. So, that was the case. The 2 pieces of news overshadowed the recent news of the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas joining the Deity Tao Union. Everyone knew that the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen, who had been in hiding for 2 years, was going to make a move again. Actually, everyone should have guessed that the Haotian sect and Xiaochen's Dragon's Gate were interdependent. Now that the Haotian sect faced a crisis of life and death, how could the white-robed Xiaochen not make a move? However, no one expected that this white-robed Xiaochen, who had not appeared for 2 years, would subdue the Myriad Fiend Island, an immortal holy land, the moment he appeared. Given the Myriad Fiend Island's strength and accumulations, even if the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas worked together, they would not be half as strong as the Myriad Fiend Island. Furthermore, the Myriad Fiend Island had a prime overseeing it. This was a huge blow to the Deity Tao Union, which was at its peak. The moment this news spread, several of the 9 ranks of the great families, who were preparing to make contact with the Deity Tao Union, immediately thought of this and decided to wait and see. When the divine daughter, Tian Yushi, received the news, she was distracted for a long time, not expecting this at all. The moment Xiaochen made a move, he managed to pull the Myriad Fiend Island over to the Haotian sect's side. More accurately, he sided with the Dragon's Gate's Xiaochen. It was because of Xiaochen that the Myriad Fiend Island agreed to help the Haotian sect. Without Xiaochen, it would be hard to say who the Myriad Fiend Island would side with. Feng Wuji and Xiahou Ju, who traveled with Tian Yushi, also did not expect such a thing. The joy of the divine dragon palaces of the 4 seas siding with the Deity Tao Union immediately diminished, and they all frowned. The 2 of you, what do you think? Tian Yushi asked as she looked at Xiahou Ju and Feng Wuji. Xiahou Ju said sullenly, we need to convince an immortal holy land as soon as possible. Otherwise, if we let this Xiaochen continue to persuade them, our Deity Tao Union will be at a complete disadvantage in the entire heavenly starry ocean. I know this. However, the immortal holy lands are not easy to convince. Furthermore, the divine sun is in closed-door cultivation and cannot come out. It will be very difficult for us to compete with Xiaochen just by relying on the benefits that he promised. Tian Yushi said somewhat dispiritedly. The Myriad Fiend Island sided with the Dragon's Gate and returned all the natural treasures that she sent. This was simply too great a blow to her. This was especially so when she learned that Xiaochen did not offer any conditions, relying only on his elegance to subdue the Myriad Fiend Island. This made her feel even more depressed. I know that those immortal holy lords are all heroes of the world. They value a person's elegance more. However, some factions might not do so, like the Northern Sea Alliance. This stunned Tian Yushi. Then, she shook her head and said, "Young Master Xia, you are mistaken. Who does not know that the Northern Sea Alliance's alliance chief is on good terms with Xiao Chen? Xiao Chen would probably be able to convince them with just one letter." Xiahou Ju smiled and said, "The Divine Daughter only knows one side and not the other. The Northern Sea Alliance is very complicated. My father is on good terms with one of their vice-alliance chief. The Divine Daughter has given me a certain amount of authority. Just leave this matter to me." When Tian Yushi heard that, she felt excited. That's right. The Northern Sea Alliance is an alliance formed by many factions. However, it is not very stable. Alright, I'll leave this matter to you. Feng Wuji, who had been silent all this while, spoke up at an appropriate time. Right now, we still need to know which Holy Land Xiao Chen is going to next. Tian Yushi quickly answered, according to the Treasure Master, Xiao Chen is already in the sea region under the Five Poison Sect's jurisdiction. He will enter the Five Poison Sect's headquarters soon. Five Poison Sect. Feng Wuji's expression changed. This Xiao Chen is really bold. He even dares to rush over to the Five Poison Sect. I remember that the Five Poison Sect caused trouble for him during the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. He even has a grudge with the Five Poison Sect's holy son. Is he not afraid of not returning? A vague murderous intent flashed in Tian Yushi's bright eyes. After some thought, he said, I already made arrangements for this. As long as he really dares to go to the Five Poison Sect, even if he does not die, he will lose a layer of skin. Feng Wuji and Xiahou Ju exchanged glances. They both felt the murderous intent in Tian Yushi's words, which was rare. The Divine Daughter, Tian Yushi, seemed intent to kill and intended to directly attack Xiao Chen. That's it, then. When the personal disciples of the Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God arrive, we will think of a way to make a trip to the Lunar Palace. That is the center of the entire heavenly starry ocean. Tian Yushi was not willing to say more about her arrangements for the Five Poison Sect. After that, they ended the conversation. The simple conversation contained a surging undercurrent. The seemingly calm heavenly starry ocean was filled with a chaotic undercurrent. The conflict between the Dragon's Gate's Xiao Chen and the deity Dao Union had already started silently, accumulating energy for an even greater storm. A monstrous battle was unavoidable. The victor lived, and the loser died. As the deity Dao Union pressed on, Xiao Chen's situation was not optimistic at all. Even if he miraculously managed to convince all the holy lands of the heavenly starry ocean, he did not even have a 50% chance of victory against the deity Dao Union. The deity Dao Union in the distant Kunlun continent already held the initiative, gaining momentum. Only by fighting against the heavens and facing the difficulties head-on could one obtain that glimmer of hope. This was also why Xiao Chen came to the Five Poison Sect. Chapter 1331. No matter how difficult it was, if Xiao Chen came, he would have a 50% chance of convincing the Five Poison Sect. The Five Poison Sect was in the eastern sea of the heavenly starry ocean. 3 immortal holy lands occupied most of the vast eastern sea. Aside from the Five Poison Sect, there was also the Yin-Yang Paradise and the Heavenly Province Academy. The remaining sea regions were controlled by the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. Aside from them, there was no space for other major factions. They were all scattered small sects that could not amount to much. The Five Poison Sect's headquarters was on Poison Cloud Island. There was only one city on Poison Cloud Island, Poison Cloud City. At this moment, Xiao Chen was in an inn in Poison Cloud City. Xiao Chen had already sent someone to deliver his letter to the Five Poison Sect 3 days ago. However, the Five Poison Sect had ignored him for 3 days, showing no intention of inviting him to their headquarters. Xiao Chen was in no rush. He stayed in the inn and started cultivating the blue dragon body nourishing art. The myriad law fiend master's gift was indeed a pleasant surprise. Shao Qian had not expected that the ring that the myriad law fiend master casually tossed over contained an emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul. Furthermore, this was no ordinary emperor-grade secret treasure. Although it was still a distance away from a primordial emperor treasure, it was still a superior-grade emperor-grade secret treasure. After refining this dragon soul, the blue dragon body nourishing art broke through the second layer in one go, reaching the peak of the third layer. After leaving Myriad Fiend Island, Shao Qian had been digesting the many benefits of this emperor-grade secret treasure dragon soul. His physical body's defense had improved further, and his strength had increased wildly, reaching a horrifying 100 dragon force. Now, with just his vital qi, he could compete with some minor heavenly Emperor Wu, with a 50-50 chance of victory. After a few major cycles, Shao Qian opened his eyes and spread out his spiritual sense. Everything that happened and said in the inn entered his mind. Did you hear? Blue Dragon King Shao Qian fought against 10 Emperor Wu alone at Myriad Fiend Island and actually won. The deity Dao Union's momentum in the heavenly starry ocean immediately fell. Ha! That was news a few days ago. Who does not know about it now? What are you talking about? Now, there are rumors that say that Blue Dragon King Shao Qian is already in the Eastern Sea. You came to the Eastern Sea region? It can't be that he will come to our Five Poison sect, right? He has a grudge with our Five Poison sect, and our holy son has even lost face at his hands. Hard to say, hard to say. The cultivators in the inn all discussed the topics that everyone in the heavenly starry ocean cared about. Shao Qian withdrew his spiritual sense and shook his head slightly. The headquarters of the Five Poison sect still did not respond. They did not even send a manservant. Standing up, Shao Qian pushed open the door and prepared to go out for a stroll. Poison Cloud City could be considered a holy city, and it would not be a bad idea to stroll around. Shao Qian's figure flickered a few times, and he walked out of the inn. No one noticed how he did it. Ha ha ha, what a coincidence. I was just about to look for you, but you went out yourself. Is this considered a chance encounter? After leaving the inn, Shao Qian raised his head and happened to see a group of people walking over. The one who spoke was the holy son of the Five Poison sect. The holy son of the Five Poison sect, Chen Ying, wore red clothes. His handsome face exuded a sinister air, no different from his usual attire. Shao Qian still had a clear memory of Chen Ying. This was especially so for his red clothes, which were exceptionally eye-catching. Shao Qian recalled that the first time he saw Chen Ying was in Despair City, fighting with the Heavenly Province Academy's holy son. Shao Qian felt that it was unlikely that Chen Ying happened to run into Chen Ying when he came out. The other party had probably been waiting for him. As for the reason, Shao Qian could guess it just by looking at the arrogant expression in the other party's eyes. It had to be a grudge from the past. This holy son still remembered it and wanted to take this opportunity to return it to Shao Qian. Shao Qian had already forgotten about this matter long ago. Furthermore, his mental state had long since passed the stage of fighting to save face. Shao Qian smiled to himself, feeling somewhat helpless. There were many people with Chen Ying, but only one caught Shao Qian's attention. That was a black-robed, middle-aged man with the cultivation of a fourth heaven martial emperor, Emperor Wu. This person exuded a baleful aura that was extremely horrifying and deeply hidden. His eyes were filled with an unruly expression. As Chen Ying looked at Shao Qian, he was unconvinced. He gave Shao Qian a sidelong glance, appearing to be mocking him. Shao Qian's expression did not change as he replied calmly, "It is indeed a coincidence. I was just about to leave, and I ran into you." Chen Ying took out an invitation and said indifferently, "My father is hosting a banquet in 3 days to entertain some honored guests. However, if the Blue Dragon King has time, you can come over on the way." Chen Ying placed a heavy emphasis on the word, "on the way," as he stared at Shao Qian, wanting to see an expression of anticipation on Shao Qian's face. However, Chen Ying was somewhat disappointed. When Shao Qian looked at the invitation in Chen Ying's hand, he said softly, "If I have time, I will definitely go over." help me thank your father for his invitation." Qining did not show any anger or dissatisfaction as Qining had imagined. He felt a sense of defeat, like he was talking to a major character when speaking to Xiaoqin. Qining gave off an invisible aura that lowered Qin Ying's status. "This won't do. This fellow made me lose face several times already. This time, he delivered himself to me. This is a rare opportunity. I have to regain some of my reputation." Xiaoqin took the corner of the invitation. However, he discovered that Qining did not seem to have any intention of letting go, still holding on tightly. Xiaoqin could not help frowning slightly as he looked at Qining. Confusion flashed in his eyes. When Qining saw Xiaoqin frown, he thought that the other party was angry. He rejoiced in his heart and smiled. "Blue Dragon King, I wonder if you have heard of the saying, the river flows east for 30 years, then west for 30 years. I'm sure you have heard of it. As the saying goes, the wheel of fortune changes. This year, it is my turn. Think about how arrogant you were back then, showing off your sharpness and sending this young master flying with one palm strike in Despair City. However, you definitely did not expect that you would have to beg me one day. Just thinking about it is delightful." Qining spoke very loudly on the streets. Furthermore, given his identity, everyone in Poison Cloud City knew about him. In mere moments, many people gathered. When they saw the white-robed, white-haired Xiaoqin, they all cast their gazes over. "He is the Blue Dragon King, Xiaoqin. Indeed, he is as the rumors say. White-robed, white-haired, an extraordinary aura. The rumors are true. After he left Myriad Fiend Island, he really did come to the Eastern Sea. However, I did not expect him to come to our Five Poison sect. His relationship with our Five Poison sect is not that good. It is not just bad. Our holy son once suffered a great loss at his hands, nearly losing all face. Look, now they are making things difficult for the Blue Dragon King. It's over. If he wants to beg, he has to lower his voice and endure as much as he can. Now that he ran into our holy son, the Blue Dragon King is in for it." Some of the muffled discussions reached Qin Ying's ears, causing the smile on his face to grow wider. "Xiaoqin, if you apologize to me today, I will give you this invitation. Let me tell you, this banquet is very important to you. If you do not go, you will lose the entire Eastern Sea's 3 holy lands." Qining held the invitation and continued proudly, "Beg me, and I will give you the invitation." Ha ha ha. When Xiaoqin, who was holding the other corner of the invitation, saw this, he could not help but feel bored. As Qining threw his head back and laughed, he did not notice the mockery in Xiaoqian's eyes. He was still laughing non-stop. How could he not laugh? Why could he not be cocky? Xiaoqin thought about it. This was the person before him who defeated all the outstanding talents at the Four Seas Hero Gathering with one move. At the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, he received the attacks of 10-odd greater Heavenly Emperor Wu. Not long ago, he fought 1 against 10, defeating 10 Emperor Wu's Blue Dragon King, Xiaoqin. He was the white-robed bladesman, conferred king at a young age and rising up. He was like a legendary existence. All the light of the world gathered on him. Everyone in the world paid attention to his every move. The most important thing was that Xiaoqin once humiliated Xiaoqin, beating him up with one move until he lost all face. Due to fate, he, the Blue Dragon King, came to the Five Poison sect to seek reinforcements. For the sake of the Haotian sect, for the sake of his own survival, he would go around looking for reinforcements. Thinking of this, Qining could not help feeling cocky. However, suddenly, Qining discovered that many of the cultivators in the air who rushed over after hearing the news were looking at him strangely, like they were looking at an idiot. What's going on? Qining was startled. When he looked down, he discovered that the invitation that he had been clutching tightly had disappeared. When he looked up, he was dumbfounded. Xiaoqin had already finished reading the invitation. Then, he closed it and said, "So, it is the people of the Yinyang Paradise and the Heavenly Province Academy. No wonder you are so confident. Chen Ying stared blankly in disbelief. He had clearly been clutching it tightly. How did the other party snatch it away? Furthermore, he did not feel anything at all. Even if Xiao Chen was stronger than him and he could not defeat Xiao Chen, he could still blast the invitation to bits in an instant. If Xiao Chen could not obtain the invitation, he would still be able to see the other party's disappointed expression. However, the script was different from what Chen Ying had imagined. Xiao Chen snatched the invitation away silently. Among the people accompanying Xiao Chen, only the black-clad man from the Fourth Heaven Emperor Wu could tell that Xiao Chen had used a brilliant technique to snatch the invitation away. Xiao Chen, how bold of you! How dare you snatch this young master's invitation? When Chen Ying thought of how embarrassing he looked earlier, he flew into a rage. He could no longer pretend to be refined. Xiao Chen did not get angry. Instead, Chen Ying got angry first. Is that so? Then I'll return it to you. However, do you dare to accept it? Xiao Chen said indifferently and expressionlessly. Then, he gently tossed the invitation forward. Boom! A strong aura spread out. Xiao Chen's white robes flapped loudly, and his white hair fluttered without any wind. That invitation contained a boundless saber intent as it whizzed towards Chen Ying. Whoosh! The invitation had just spun around when a sharp light shot out from it. Caught off guard, a bloody wound immediately appeared on Chen Ying's face, inflicting incredible pain. The ordinary invitation card had instantly turned into a lethal weapon. This startled Chen Ying into retreating frantically, not daring to receive it at all. A figure appeared. The black-clad man moved forward and shielded Chen Ying. Then, he stretched out his hand and caught the invitation. Buzz! The invitation trembled endlessly in the black-clad man's hand, buzzing endlessly. Strands of saber intent surged out, making all the cultivators on the street feel a sharp and inviolable sharpness. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat, and they all looked at Xiao Chen at the same time. Is this the Blue Dragon King? Unparalleled sharpness, unbridled, arrogant, and iron-like. Xiao Chen, are you trying to kill this holy son? Chen Ying held the wound on his face as he angrily pushed away the black-clad man. Then, he said to Xiao Chen hatefully, you can scram now. When the Haotian sect suffers a calamity, my 5-poison sect will definitely hit you while you are down. As for you, when you walk the Emperor's road, this young master will definitely make you regret it for life.